LoveLore Library. Chapter 325. When the teachers saw Yao Hongyin coming over, they were obviously stunned. After a long while, one of them said, maybe the other students forgot. These teachers were responsible for counting all the students in the morning. No one expected that Yao Hongyin would be left out. It wasn't until she came that they realized something. How did they miss a student? When they counted, they didn't feel that anything was wrong. When Muzillion saw Yao Hongyin, he felt a little strange. He even teased, "She's so unpopular. Didn't anyone wake her up in the morning?" Musichu paused. The teachers didn't count. Obviously, he also didn't understand why Yao Hongyin was left behind. It wasn't that they knew Yao Hongyin, but it was the teacher's responsibility to ensure the safety of every student. The teachers wouldn't make such a mistake. Looking at the teachers' expressions, it was obvious that they didn't remember. In fact, Musichu had a very good memory. He noticed when Yao Hongyin didn't come. After all, there were dozens of people. Even if they were all strangers, he could roughly remember. Moreover, he could tell that something was wrong by counting the number of people. He thought that the other party had applied for leave and was late. He didn't expect that the teachers didn't call her at all. Yao Hongyin entered the group and looked at the people around her angrily. Even the three boys who were closer to her complained, "What's wrong with you guys? You didn't remember to call me when you left in the morning." "Ha!" One of the boys was obviously a little confused. He said slowly, "I thought you came first." "Yeah, we didn't notice that you didn't come just now." In fact, it wasn't that they didn't notice, but they had subconsciously begun to ignore Yao Hongyin as a student. Of course, this wasn't intentional. Something had begun to enter the array's reincarnation point. This was a cycle of reincarnation point. It was an extremely powerful array. She could break it, but it wasn't the right time. Yao Hongyin was targeted. She glanced at the crowd. Duan Ryun lowered her head, as if the things around her had nothing to do with her. She was still weak, timid, and self-abased. She didn't fit in with this group of confident college students. Qiao Jin retracted his gaze. On the other side, Yao Hongyin was still brooding over the fact that her teacher and classmates were not around. The people around her could only say that they had forgotten, but they could not explain why they did not think of Yao Hongyin at that moment. It was as if subconsciously, they did not think that there was such a classmate in this event. This made people feel a little confused, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. However, the exchange event was about to end, and everyone had to return to the hotel in the afternoon. Qiao Jin went to the teacher to ask for leave. "Teacher, I think the scenery here is very good. I want to stay here for 2 more days, is that okay?" In the face of Qiao Jin's willful request, the teacher was dumbfounded. "But there's going to be a cooperative exchange with the school soon. Don't you want to participate?" Qiao Jin was very patient. "Teacher, I know it's wrong of me to do this. The scenery here is very good. I want to stay for a while. At most, I'll return to the hotel in 2 days. Is that okay?" Her excuse was actually not sincere at all, but for some reason, the teacher still agreed. Musichu and Muzillion knew that Qiao Jin was going to stay. Chapter 326. For the first time, Muzillion called Xiao Fei and Mu Jinming to complain. She expressed her anger at Qiao Jin's excessive behavior. "She's too irresponsible. She was the one who wanted to come to the exchange event. Now that she's in a small town, she's saying that the scenery is beautiful and she wants to stay for a few more days. What can we do?" Most importantly, all the students had left. He and his blockhead brother had to stay here to watch over Qiao Jin. There weren't many people in the bar at night. It was as sad as it could be. Those tourists who came to sightsee rarely found suitable peers. After Xiao Fei heard about Xiao Jin's behavior, he was a little surprised. After the shock, he said, "Little sister has never been abroad to see good scenery. If she wants to see it, you can accompany her. Anyway, you have nothing to do." Musilian. He immediately realized that it was useless to say this to Xiao Fei. This woman only had eyes for her daughter. Musilian said angrily, "Give the phone to Dad." Mu Jinming's voice faintly came from the side. "Listen to your mother." Musilian, he hung up the phone expressionlessly. Then, he said to Musichu, "Brother, we can't leave this town." Musichu said, "If Xiao Jin wants to stay here and play, let her. Didn't we come out this time to make her happy?" Musilian. So he was the only one in this family who was resisting Xiao Jin's evil forces. When did it become like this? At this moment, Xiao Jin walked over. "We're still staying in the same place. If you don't want to stay here, you can go into the city. I'll come and find you. You don't have to accompany me." Musichu, "No need. We'll stay here with you." Xiao Jin, "Okay." Musilian, "This woman was just being polite, wasn't she?" Xiao Jin unexpectedly asked for leave, allowing the three of them to stay. Other than them, everyone else had left. Zhongli Peining and Zhongli Shiyu didn't expect that Xiao Jin would suddenly ask for leave. At this time, it was too late to ask for leave. They could only grit their teeth and leave first. First, they had to set up a line of sight to follow and monitor Xiao Jin. However, if Xiao Jin left their line of sight, both of them knew very well that they might not be able to monitor him. Xiao Jin saw that Duan Rian glanced at him before she left. Her eyes were blank, as if she was a puppet without a soul, as if she was being controlled by something. Xiao Jin knew that she would not leave. She will come back. After seeing off the school's car, Musichu turned around and asked her, "Why are you staying? Is it really because of the beautiful scenery here?" He vaguely felt that it could not be such a simple reason. "Xiao Jin, the scenery is beautiful." Musichu, that afternoon, Xiao Jin noticed that Zhao Roland was taken by Wei Dixuan. The two of them drove to the ridge of the town, probably really to see the scenery. But at the same time, the ridge was dangerous, so it was also a good time to make a move. She watched Zhao Roland and Wei Dixuan leave from afar and raised her hand to look at her palm. Reality was mixed with falsehood, so there must be something that was real. What happened to Duan Rian back then, she would tell Xiao Jin herself. But Xiao Jin now felt that perhaps the two things had collided. Xiao Jin called the school teacher in the evening. "Teacher, is Yao Hongyin here?" Xiao Jin, who is Yao Hongyin?" Xiao Jin's lips curled up. Chapter 327. "Nothing, teacher. I'm just asking." After hanging up the phone, Xiao Jin looked at the time. It was about time. Although she didn't know the specific process, she could guess that Yao Hongyin was targeted by Duan Rian. That was why she disappeared. This kind of disappearance was real. She slowly disappeared from people's memories as if such a person had never existed. This kind of ability was very scary. Because it was scary, although it could be done, the price was very high, and there must be some kind of purpose. If Duan Rian died 20 years ago, then Yao Hongyin should have nothing to do with her, because at that time, Yao Hongyin was just a newborn or an unborn baby. Why did Yao Hongyin become the target? She looked at the continuous green ridge outside the town. Although the scenery was beautiful, it was also creepy. At night, no one played. Musilian went back to the hotel to eat out of boredom. He happened to mention something. "I heard that the most popular bar in town used to be a hotel. There was a big fire and a Huaxia person was killed. It was abandoned for a long time and was turned into a bar. The business is good. Muchichu stopped eating and asked, "Where did you hear that from?" "Muzillion, there is a Huaxia couple here who have lived for many years. When I went to eat snacks in the afternoon, they talked to me. The old man has lived here for a long time and has no one to talk to. He is very gossipy. It is said that 20 years ago, there was also a school activity. For some reason, a student was locked in the hotel. There was a fire behind and he couldn't come out. The locals also have rumors of ghosts and gods. They were afraid. Later, the government came to modify it and it became a bar. Damn, that bar is really scary. It burned a person alive, a Huaxia person." Xiao Jin didn't expect Muzillion to have this kind of attribute. She couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What's the name of the dead student?" "How would I know?" Muzillion shook his head. "The old man hasn't talked to anyone for a long time. He knew that I was also here for the school activity, so he just casually gossiped with me. How can I ask who's dead?" He even rolled his eyes. Xiao Jin cut a piece of steak in the middle of the plate. "I know something. 20 years ago, our school was holding an event, and they came here. Maybe the people who died were from our school." Muzillion and Muzichu, what was supposed to be a good topic of conversation, started to be filled with a sinister and terrifying aura. Muzillion suddenly shuddered. "Where did you hear that?" This was what Muzichu had asked him earlier. "Xiao Jin, I asked the teacher when I was bored, and the teacher told me. I don't know if anyone died, but if something like that happened, the school would definitely keep it a secret, right?" "Of course." Muzillion's expression was grave. "Who dares to announce this?" He was a student, and he was burned alive in the hotel. If such a huge mistake was made public, it would at least cause some impact. But it had been too long, and they had never heard of such a thing. Xiao Jin said, "Do you remember a female student called Yao Hongyin who was late this morning? When we left, we almost didn't take her with us." Muzillion, "Oh, you're talking about that girl. I remember." "What's wrong?" Xiao Jin suddenly raised an eyebrow. Chapter 328. You remember. She had a playful smile on her lips. Muzillion was confused by her gaze. "Of course I remember." It seemed that when she set up the array at home, Muzillion and the others were affected by more than that. Duan Ro Yan's array couldn't affect them. Muzillion was insensitive and didn't understand the meaning of Xiao Jin's words. Muzichu was deep in thought. "Xiao Jin, why are you saying this?" Xiao Jin put down his knife and fork. "Why don't you call the activity director and ask him if he remembers a student named Yao Hongyin?" Then, he got up and said, "I'm going up to rest. You have to tell me tomorrow morning." Then, he left. Mu Qilian said, "Why did you call the director out of the blue to tell him these things?" Muzichu felt that something serious was going on. He picked up the phone and called the director. The director quickly picked up. When he asked about Yao Hongyin, the other party's answer was exactly the same as what he had said to Xiao Jin. "Mr. Mu, did you remember wrongly? We don't have a student named Yao Hongyin in this activity. Did you remember wrongly? You're quite concerned about Yao Hongyin. Your sister also called to ask, but we don't have a student with the surname Yao in this activity." Muzichu's expression became uglier and uglier as the director answered. Muzillion froze when he heard the voice from the speaker. Was he kidding? He didn't have much impression of Yao Hongyin, but he remembered that the teacher had called her name in the morning. Even if they had the same pronunciation, Yao Hongyin should be right. But now, the director said that there was no such person. How could there be such a ridiculous thing? Muzichu asked several times, but the director said no. He even felt a little dissatisfied with Mizuchu. I'm old, but I haven't reached the point where I can't even remember a student. Mizuchu apologized and hung up. He and Muzillion looked at each other. Both of them found it hard to understand the situation. Muzillion suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. How did a living person disappear? Judging from his brother's attitude, it was obvious that he knew about this classmate. He knew about it too. But now, even the director said that he didn't know him. Mizuchu lowered his head and sent a message on his phone. In the WeChat group, he asked the student union to investigate the student's information and see if there was a student named Yao Hongyin who had participated in this study trip. However, the results came out very quickly. The people from the student union said that there was no such person in the school. Yao Hongyin was not mentioned in the student files. There were no names with the same pronunciation, but there was a large number of people with the surname Yao, but they were not related to Yao Hongyin. The people from the student council even asked Mizuchu if he had misremembered a name or a word. In other words, only the two of them remembered that there was a student named Yao Hongyin. The others had all forgotten about her. What kind of fantasy story was this? It couldn't be that he and his brother had misremembered at the same time, right? Then, Muzillion recalled that Xiao Jin was the one who had first brought up this matter. In other words, Xiao Jin still remembered this matter. Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin went up to rest. Fuck. Mizuchu got up and said calmly, I might have remembered wrongly. I don't remember her name being Yao Hongyin. Xiao Jin must have made a mistake. Go upstairs and rest first. We'll know when we return to the hotel tomorrow morning. Chapter 329. Muzillion also got up and nodded. A living person can't disappear. We must have remembered the name wrong. It was all Xiao Jin's fault for misleading them. Maybe the teacher didn't call Yao Hongyin at that time. Most people wouldn't believe such a ridiculous thing. Mizuchu saw Muzillion go up and narrowed his eyes. He knew that something was really wrong. Muzillion could be fooled, but he couldn't. He heard clearly in the morning that the teacher called Yao Hongyin. The fact was that the Yao Hongyin they thought didn't exist. Xiao Jin said that she was going back to her room, but she didn't. She picked up Su Rong's umbrella and went out. The weather in the town changed quickly, and it even began to drizzle. The climate in this town was special, and it often rained. During the day, it always made people feel relaxed and happy, but at night, it wasn't so tempting. The town rested early, and people basically didn't go out at night. It was a small place, unlike the city. Behind them was a continuous stretch of flat land and mountains. At a glance, it was green, but at night, it wasn't very clear. On the wide asphalt road, a car was driving in the rain. In front of them was the road with very low visibility, and only the car's headlights were stubbornly illuminating. Zhao Rolan looked at the rainy sky, and it was late at night. She wasn't very interested. Dixuan, why do we have to come out at night? Wei Dixuan, who was driving, still looked gentle. Lon Lon, didn't we agree that I'll take you to a beautiful place? Don't worry, I've booked a hotel there. It's just right to drive there now. If you're tired, you can rest for a while. It won't be too long. Zhao Rolan was pregnant, and she was already sleepy. She was extremely sleepy, so when she heard this, she leaned against the back of the car seat and slowly fell asleep. She was awakened by a sudden jerk of the brakes. When she woke up, it was still dark outside the car window. Her slightly sleepy eyes only heard Wei Dixuan's cold voice, which seemed to be mixed with the wind and rain. Lon Lon, there seems to be something wrong with the car. I'll get out and take a look. Stay in the car and don't move. Zhao Rolan. Okay. She subconsciously responded in a low voice. Her mind was so tired that she did not know how to think. She heard the sound of the door closing and the door swinging. After a while, Xiao Rolan didn't hear anything for a long time. She was a little flustered. She subconsciously raised her head and looked back. She couldn't see anything through the glass of the car. It was already dark outside, and it was raining. The pitter-patter of rain was getting heavier and heavier. In this kind of weather, it even made people feel a little frustrated. Xiao Rolan was very sure that she didn't see Wei Dechuan. Dexian, Dexian. She called out twice in a panic, but did not see any movement. Crackle crackle, the raindrops fell on the car, making all sorts of noises. In this environment, she saw a tall black figure appear outside the car window. At that moment, Xiao Rolan's heart almost stopped. A shrill cry escaped from her mouth. Facing such a strange figure in an unfamiliar environment, even in the middle of the night, was enough to scare Xiao Rolan out of her wits. She instinctively wanted to crawl to the driver's seat because she saw the black figure holding something in his hand. It looked like a sharp blade. Under such circumstances, what could it be? Chapter 330. Xiao Rolan was trembling all over. Her whole body was cold and she didn't know what to do. Her tears gushed out in an instant. She screamed, Dexian, Dexian. However, she knew that Dexian must be in danger. She didn't think about other situations at all. How could she encounter such a thing when she came out? Xiao Rolan scrambled to the driver's seat because she saw that Wei Dexian locked the door when he got out of the car. Why did he lock the door? At that moment, Xiao Rolan, who was extremely scared, suddenly felt cold all over when she thought of this. If he locked the door, wouldn't he get in as well? Maybe he had the key in his hand. Xiao Rolan glanced at the car and found that the car key was indeed not there. Maybe he wanted Xiao Rolan to be safer in the car. Dong! The black figure outside the window raised something and smashed it on the car window. Ah! Xiao Rolan screamed again. She looked back and saw the black figure smashing the window again and again. The ordinary car window was not protected by any safety measures. Once it was smashed, it cracked like a spider. It looked like it was in imminent danger. Perhaps in the next second, it would completely shatter. At that time, Xiao Rolan, who was in the car, would be doomed. Dexian, Dexian. At this time, Xiao Rolan couldn't think of anything else. Her tears fell down and she just called Dexian's name. Her face was completely pale. She never thought that death would suddenly come at this moment. What are you doing? Suddenly, a puzzled question came from outside the car window. Mixed with the wind and rain, Xiao Rolan almost couldn't hear it clearly. She could only hear a girl's voice in a trance. However, the figure who was smashing the car window stopped. Run, run. Call the police, call the police. Xiao Rolan used all her strength to shout as loudly as she could, hoping that the girl who suddenly appeared could call the police for her. At least there was still a chance to save her. This person definitely wanted to kill her, absolutely. Through the rain, she saw that there seemed to be two figures standing outside. How could there be two figures in such a place in the middle of the night? Although this was a tourist attraction, there weren't many people, especially abroad. Basically, no one would come out in the middle of the night. Tonight, Xiao Rolan admired herself for being able to think about these things at this time. When the black figure saw the two girls who suddenly appeared, and both of them had huaxia faces, he was obviously a little flustered. What was even more unexpected was that he could still step forward when he saw that the situation was not right. One of them looked weak and timid. The person beside her seemed to have no soul. She just stared blankly at the black figure. She looked even more sinister than the person who was about to commit murder. He was obviously a little flustered. He had a huge axe in his hand, and he had just used one end of the axe to smash the window. As long as he killed the woman inside, his mission would be complete. And now, the other two girls in front of him still asked patiently, "What are you doing?" The other party seemed to know that he was a foreigner and spoke in English. Wei Dechuan was also lying on the ground. He had been knocked unconscious by a man with an axe. When acting, one had to be thorough. After all, what was done was done. Thinking of this, the black figure decided to go all out. He raised his axe and rushed towards the two Chinese girls. Chapter 331. Ah! In the wind and rain, only the woman's shrill screams could be heard. Zhao Rolan was scared out of her wits when she saw the black figure slashing the two girls with a sharp weapon outside the window. This was the first time Zhao Rolan had seen such a murder scene. It was beyond her understanding of more than 20 years. She was pregnant. How could she encounter such a thing? She didn't even faint. She could only watch as she died. This made Zhao Rolan feel even more hopeless. Screech! Suddenly, there was a soft sound. Zhao Rolan was stunned. Suddenly, she saw a small lock pop out of the originally locked window. This was a sign that it had been opened. She subconsciously pulled on the door buckle. The door opened. At that moment, Zhao Rolan almost fell into an unbelievable ecstasy. She turned around and saw that the black figure was still killing the two girls. What was strange was that even under such circumstances, there were no cries of agony. It made one's hair stand on end for no reason. Zhao Rolan, who was in extreme fear, couldn't feel this abnormality. She almost exploded with the greatest will to live. She opened the door and ran out. She ran so suddenly that the black figure didn't expect her to get out of the car. He was stunned for a moment. When he looked down, he saw two corpses on the ground. One of the girls was twitching. Her leg had been cut off, but she couldn't make a sound. Her expression showed that she was in extreme pain. Blood mixed with the rain. Her eyes were wide open. She seemed to be unwilling to accept this. Slowly, she breathed her last. The other girl's waist was only cut by him. Blood seeped out, but her face was very clear. Her eyes were staring straight at him. This made the perpetrator's hair stand. He couldn't care less about the two people who couldn't escape. He chased after Zhao Rolan with the axe. She had to run back. She had to run back. Zhao Rolan ran on the asphalt road. Her body and mind were completely broken. However, she felt that something was protecting her. It didn't make her legs go weak and stop. Her stomach hurt a little. It was probably because the child was affected. But she couldn't care less. She knew that she wouldn't survive today. There was no hope for the child. There was something burning in her heart. If Zhao Rolan could lower her head, she would see that the budded jade pendant that her mother had asked for was shattering bit by bit. She heard the footsteps behind her. Her tears flowed uncontrollably. She was terrified and desperate. The town in the distance flickered with a dim yellow light. As long as he ran closer, there would be some hope. Help! Help! Zhao Rolan screamed for help in English. Anyone who heard her heart-wrenching voice would know how desperate she was. However, the black figure behind her was getting closer and closer to Zhao Rolan. She could almost hear the man's approaching footsteps. Her strength was almost exhausted, and she was holding on with her last breath. If she died here, then it would all be over. She had just married Wei Dechuan and was pregnant with a little life. How could she die like this? In a trance, she seemed to recall the words her mother had said when she gave her the jade pendant. There's always a what if. I'm doing this for peace of mind. Just take it with you. I've already agreed to your marriage. Don't tell me that in order to ensure your safety, you can't even let your mother feel at ease. Chapter 332. Perhaps her scream was loud enough, or perhaps someone in the town noticed it and didn't ignore it. Soon, a few patrolling police officers appeared on the streets of the town connected by the asphalt road. The moment he saw the police appear, the man in black who had almost caught up with Zhao Roland turned around and ran. Obviously, he knew that there was no benefit in fighting with the police, and foreign police were usually equipped with guns. Help, help! The moment she saw the police, Zhao Roland felt that it was the most exciting moment of her life. She wasn't even excited about marrying Wei Dexuan. At that moment, the police were like her second parents. The police also noticed the man in black chasing behind Zhao Roland and immediately shouted, "Stop, don't move." Unfortunately, the man in black ran too fast, and the police shot directly. Unfortunately, their shooting wasn't very accurate, and the man in black still ran away. Some police officers chased after him, and someone on the other side caught Zhao Roland who was running over. She cried like a dehydrated fish, and when she ran into the arms of the police and was helped up, she felt something break with a crack. She lowered her head and saw that a few pieces of jade had fallen off her body. She was stunned for a moment before falling to the ground and bawling her eyes out. In the wind and rain, a girl was quietly holding an umbrella not far away, watching this scene. She also saw the man in black running away. If someone approached, she would find that the umbrella didn't just help her block the rain, but also seemed to be a transparent barrier that prevented anything from entering. Her body was clean, not even a drop of water. She tilted her head and returned to the hotel. Zhao Roland wasn't dead. Her fate line had changed. The 1 million yuan had played a role in the end. It wasn't money that saved her life. The 1 million yuan was helped by the master to help poor children, and there was a blessing. This blessing protected Zhao Roland and allowed her to escape. However, this might only happen once in a lifetime. She wasn't dead now, but if she couldn't recognize Wei Dexuan, she would still be doomed. It all depended on the results of the police investigation. Back at the hotel, Zhao Roland's scream had already woken up everyone in the town. Everyone turned on the lights, not knowing what had happened. When Musichu woke up, he bumped into Qiao Jin, who had just come in. He frowned and asked, "You went out?" Qiao Jin replied without batting an eyelid, "I went to the washroom." "Musichu, isn't there a bathroom upstairs?" He knew that Qiao Jin was lying through his teeth. His face darkened. "I don't like it when you hide too many things from us. I'm your brother now. I'm worried about your safety." "I know," Qiao Jin answered calmly. "I'll be fine, I can promise you that. However, there are many things that are not suitable for you to know now." "Musichu, are you referring to the fact that everyone has forgotten about Yao Hongyin except for the three of us? Why is that?" He was very smart and would always be able to guess some things. Musichu said, "There are many strange things in this world, right? It's just like when you took drugs and got better instantly. Even the doctors couldn't tell what was wrong with you, just like how you saved Brother Yanqing." He looked at Qiao Jin, his calm eyes scrutinizing and a hint of anger. He was angry, which was rare. Qiao Jin was still calm, as if he was listening to Musichu talk about something unimportant. Chapter 333. Qiao Jin said, "You know that I won't tell you." It was not in the same world, so Qiao Jin would not let the Mu family know for the time being. Musichu said, "I will always be suspicious. Mom and the others just don't ask. It's not that they don't want to know. You can't hide it from us forever." Qiao Jin said, "It's not that I can't do it." Musichu, he looked at Qiao Jin, and there was a trace of disappointment in his eyes. "What kind of existence are you? In fact, you have never put our family in the same position. Can I ask, who are you? You are not Xiao Jin, are you? This question was actually very interesting, because Xiao Jin had known that Mizuchu would ask it. She just said, I am Xiao Jin. She used to be Xiao Jin, and she was still Xiao Jin. The Xiao Jin in her life was one of her consciousnesses, and he was also her. However, after combining other consciousnesses, kindness might only have a very low position in her heart. She respected everything as cause and effect, and implemented an equivalent exchange. She did feel like she was not involved. Just like how they had always felt, she seemed to be in another world, on another level. Mizuchu suddenly calmed down, and the turbulent undercurrent gradually subsided. He asked softly, are we family in your heart? Xiao Jin was silent for a moment, and then nodded. They were family. However, in just a few months, Xiao Jin had learned a lot. They were very cute, which was Xiao Jin's feeling. Having a family in this world was something she had never thought of before. Therefore, she did treat the Mu family as her family. However, because of her personality, she felt that she was a part of their family, but she could not express it in other ways. Under her protection, they would not be hurt, which was the best explanation. She did not tell Mizuchu for his own good. Another world had its own set of rules. If he knew too much, he would be targeted by others. Mizuchu sighed slowly and nodded. I understand. Then, he did not ask any more questions. Since she still didn't want to tell him, he didn't want to force her. This was the only thing an older brother could do. Because she did not seem to need their protection. Zhao Roland's incident caused a stir in the entire town. Everyone knew that a homicidal maniac had appeared. The police followed the man in black's trail and found Zhao Roland's car. They also saw the unconscious Wei Dixuan. However, according to what Zhao Roland said later, there were still 2 girls' corpses at the scene. However, the police only found the body of a short-haired Chinese girl at the scene. In other words, there was still one missing. Moreover, the culprit had not been caught. This incident caused panic in the small town. After all, no one would have expected such a vicious murder to occur in such a peaceful town. The police chased the man in black for a long time that night, but they could not find him. However, according to the clues, he might have escaped back to the town. In other words, he might be a tourist or a local resident. This time, the police station took it very seriously. They were afraid that he was a serial killer, and they even transferred police from other places. Everyone had to investigate these 2 days, and the tourists in the town could not leave for the time being. Even if they wanted to leave, they had to be cleared of suspicion first. Zhao Roland fainted in fear that night and woke up early the next morning. Chapter 334. She called her parents as soon as she woke up in the morning. When her mother heard that Zhao Roland almost had such a big accident, she almost fainted from fright. Later, Zhao Roland said that her jade pendant was broken. After hearing the whole story, her mother cried out, "It's really God's blessing. We met a real master who saved your life." If the other party hadn't offered to donate 1 million yuan to the temple, there wouldn't have been this jade pendant. Whether or not Zhao Roland would have escaped was another matter. Even if the whole thing seemed to have nothing to do with the jade pendant was broken without touching it. It was as if it had blocked a disaster for Zhao Roland. At this time, Zhao Roland was still in doubt. Is it really because the master saved my life? What are you still doubting? This must be a real master. Not only do you have to thank him, but you also have to thank your sister C. If it weren't for Lin Ci's insistence that this master was very effective, Mother Zhao wouldn't have asked for this jade pendant for Zhao Roland. Now that her daughter was protected in the hospital, Mother Zhao was relieved and finally asked Wei Dixuan, what was he doing last night? Zhao Roland thought of the police's statement and said, Dechuan was knocked unconscious by the murderer when he got out of the car last night, so he couldn't save me. He almost lost his life, Mother Zhao concluded. I don't believe it. Zhao Roland was shocked. Mother Zhao said, when you said that you wanted to travel here, I felt strange. You also said that this place was proposed by Wei Dechuan. Why did he choose this place and take you to see the scenery in the middle of the night? What scenery? Why did the car break down at this time and you got out of the car to check? The murderer had a sharp weapon to smash the window to kill you. Why didn't he kill Wei Dechuan first? Wasn't he afraid that Wei Dechuan would give evidence against him after he woke up? This isn't right. Zhao Roland originally didn't doubt Wei Dechuan. Now that she was questioned by her mother, she was stunned and couldn't find a point to refute. Yes, how could it be so coincidental? She was also highly educated and her brain wasn't bad, but she didn't think of some things at all. After thinking of this, she asked the police. The police said that Wei Dechuan hadn't woken up yet and told her directly, Madam, we also suspect that your husband has something to do with this matter. The murderer didn't have any means of transportation at the time, which means that he might have just happened to pass by, or he might have deliberately waited there. According to the situation at the scene, we think that the second scenario is the most likely. The murderer who deliberately waited there to kill you would definitely not leave you alive. The idea of killing you first and then killing your husband is also not big. Normally, the murderer would choose to kill your husband first and then silence you. Otherwise, your husband would wake up halfway and have a high chance of escaping. And he was only knocked out, of course, we only suspect. To some extent, the police's suspicions were normal, especially when Zhao Roland saw Wei Dechuan lock the car door. It seemed like he was protecting her, but who knew if he was preventing her from escaping easily? At that time, the car door was locked, but it was unlocked for no reason. After that, she wondered if her husband, who had woken up halfway, had unlocked the door. However, the police said that the key had fallen on the ground and was stained with blood. The traces were not destroyed, which meant that her husband had not touched the key again. Zhao Roland was completely shocked. Chapter 335. Musichu and Musilian were also implicated and couldn't leave the town. Musilian didn't know what had happened. He only felt that everything was strange now. He said to Musichu, I suddenly feel that we shouldn't have come. He should have been in China, dancing happily, and not here. First, he encountered a supernatural ghost story, and now, there was a murder case. Musichu said, we're already here. Musilian, in other words, it had already happened. No matter how much they regretted it, it was useless. The only thing they could be thankful for was that it didn't happen to them. Because of their special identities, Musichu informed the school. After the school learned of the situation, they contacted the local police station. After the police station ruled it out, they said that the school could pick them up the next day. However, what they didn't expect was that the school actually called the police and said that a student had gone missing. They said that the missing student was a classmate called Yao Hongyin. In other words, she had been remembered. They were almost shocked to find that no one had any special opinions about Yao Hongyin's disappearance. The only difference was that when they woke up early in the morning, the teachers suddenly remembered, right, there was still a classmate called Yao Hongyin. The team checked and found that Yao Hongyin was gone. They were so scared that they hurriedly called the police. The local police did an autopsy on the dead Chinese girl and confirmed that she was the missing Yao Hongyin. A student came here and was killed. The activities director's hair fell out at that time. It's over, something big has happened. The group of students exploded. All the students were in a panic and didn't dare to stay abroad any longer. The activities were forced to end early. The school directly chartered a plane to pick up this batch of students. At least, there couldn't be anything else. Xiao Jin and the others were also ordered to return to China. The car to pick them up would arrive that night. The activities director couldn't understand why he couldn't remember that there was a classmate named Zhao Hongyin in his team when Musichu and the others called. Xiao Jin was in the hotel. She received Lin Si's gratitude that contained incomparable excitement. She knew about her godsister. Her mother and Mother Zhao would arrive at this place tomorrow to pick up Zhao Rolan. Wei Dixuan was temporarily controlled because he was a suspect, but he insisted that he didn't have such absurd thoughts. Because there was no conclusive evidence and the murderer hadn't been caught, the police could only let him go for the time being. However, Lin Si Liao concluded that there was something wrong with his brother-in-law. She believed in the master and almost instantly understood that all of this was arranged by Wei Dixuan. She only asked her mother to quickly take her sister back to the country and not let her contact Wei Dixuan again. At this time, Zhao Rolan had already fallen into deep self-doubt. After experiencing a life-and-death situation, she seemed to understand a lot. She didn't resist her mother's decision too much. However, Wei Dixuan insisted on leaving with Zhao Rolan. He cried and said that he didn't know anything. Zhao Rolan's suspicion was on the verge of collapse. In this way, Mother Zhao directly decided not to leave. She transferred Zhao Rolan to a nearby city and hired bodyguards to watch over her 24 hours a day to ensure that there wouldn't be any accidents. On the one hand, she deserved to be investigated by the police. She wanted to see how long this Wei Dixuan could hold on. At this time, Xiao Jin saw a girl come in from outside the hotel. She seemed to have an inferior and timid look. When she saw Xiao Jin, she revealed a pale smile. Student Xiao. Chapter 336. She was Duan Ruyan. Xiao Jin said, "Your array has been broken." But the person she wanted to bring back was killed, and there was a gap in her array. Duan Ruyan just smiled. Xiao Jin asked her slowly, "Why are you trapped here?" Duan Ruyan said, "Because I betrayed the demons." Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows slightly. He had never heard of anyone who could betray the demons. Duan Ruyan still looked cautious. At this time, there was even a shy smile on her face. However, this kind of shyness was like a purity that had not been polluted by the big dye vat of society. When she came to the city and faced everything new, she was cautious and shy. Xiao Jin said, 20 years ago, you died here, burned to death by fire. It must have been very painful, right? I know. When he smelled the strong smell, he could also feel the bone-deep despair. How terrible it was for a person to be burned alive. Duan Ruyan said, I was indeed dying at that time. She softly talked about the past. At that time, I was bewitched and awakened. I originally had the ability to escape, but when I faced those people, I didn't do it and didn't complete my revenge. My performance made the demons very dissatisfied, so they trapped me in this realm, day after day, year after year. They used my ability to achieve their goal for them. Xiao Jin said, why didn't you do it? As long as she did it, her demonization would be complete, and she would have taken her revenge. She would probably be free. It's the same purgatory. Which one do you jump to? Duan Ruyan showed a gentle smile. I came to you today to ask for your help. I know you can help me get out of this vicious circle. Xiao Jin said, then you should know that I don't get involved in other people's karma. This was the reason why she didn't choose to save him. Duan Ruyan said, I know, so I will give you something that will satisfy you. I am an array master, and I work for the demons. The demonized spiritual seed I have is better than other wizards. I know you need it, so I will give it to you. With her words, the world began to slowly darken, and the surrounding airflow became more and more obvious. The demons of the Rakshasa realm appeared more and more clearly. They looked at Duan Ruyan and roared at Xiao Jin with ferocious expressions. Some devils even gradually grabbed Duan Ruyan's body. Xiao Jin saw that she was almost completely corroded by the Rakshasa realm. Although she didn't demonize back then, she wasn't too far off. This was also the reason why she was trapped. For the rest of his life, he would never be free. Everything in the world had rules. Duan Ruyan had chosen to agree at that time, but she had failed to do so. That was the price she had to pay. Xiao Jin said, "The devils of the Rakshasa realm can't do it directly." "Who trapped you?" Duan Ruyan looked at her and was a little surprised. Then she smiled and said, "You are indeed more powerful than I thought, but he is very scary." Duan Ruyan's face twisted. She was most likely terrified of the person she had set up the rune. Xiao Jin raised his eyebrows slightly. "Maybe I know who it is." Duan Ruyan actually didn't know what Xiao Jin was. She just felt that Xiao Jin could save her. Xiao Jin could indeed save her, but she felt that there should be a chain of interests behind it. Duan Ruyan was part of the chain of interests. Yao Hongyin wasn't the first. If Duan Ruyan didn't disappear, she definitely wouldn't be the last. These people who disappeared all had their uses. Duan Ruyan's body was already on the verge of collapse. The other side was forcing her to return to the starting point. She couldn't resist anymore. She looked at Xiao Jin with a hint of pleading in her eyes. "Please." Chapter 337. It was just that she was living in another form, in a state that was neither human nor ghost. The demon at that time had deceived her. It was already a few days later that she wanted to take revenge. The fire burned down the hotel, and her body was dug out from the body. The bloody handprints she left on the door caused quite a bit of panic among all the students at that time. Some were afraid, while others were terrified. They all knew that the staff had left without informing them because they had said that no one was in the hotel. Duan Ruyan did not know where the phone was, and she did not know who to inform. The school then sent people to rescue the group of students and covered up the matter. No one paid for Duan Ruyan's death. The school only said that she had died in an accident. Out of pity, they informed her parents and compensated her parents with hundreds of thousands of yuan. At that time, her parents were almost completely disheartened. Why did I stop taking revenge? At that time, I wanted to find someone else, but I found some strange energy in their house. I couldn't get in, so I went to find the teacher. She saw that group of people bullying Duan Ruyan. Because she was afraid of the student's family background, she pretended not to see it. However, when she went to find the teacher, she saw the teacher holding her newborn daughter and crying silently while looking at her photo. At that moment, she was touched. I might be stupid, but I know that she had no choice. She also had her own daughter. If I killed her, her daughter would lose her mother, so she gave up on revenge. She was a demonized array master. If she gave up on revenge at the first stop, she could not talk about revenge later. Because of that, she was trapped here and became a puppet of the demon. Someone secretly controlled her and made her the one who delivered the sacrifice. She did not know what a sacrifice was. She only knew that she would appear at this time every year and take away a person, perhaps anywhere. This year, she happened to return to the starting point and met Xiao Jin. Perhaps this was the difference. Duan Ruyan had a premonition that all of this would happen to Xiao Jin. Sacrifice. Xiao Jin chewed on the word and frowned slightly. Sacrifice was not a good word. It was obvious that it was used to do unreasonable things. It was certain that his old enemy was still alive. If he was still alive, then it would not be strange for him to do these things. He did not have Qiao Jin's ability to use the demonized spiritual seed as a shield. Furthermore, it was very difficult to obtain the demonized spiritual seed. It might not be available at all times. He would find the most convenient way, and this convenient way was to use humans as sacrifices. In his eyes, humans were no different from livestock. Therefore, out of the two array masters, Qiao Jin was able to become the strongest, but he was like a rat hiding in the gutter his whole life, unable to show his face. Thinking of this, Qiao Jin's eyes flashed with a cold light. 10,000 years ago, they were rivals, and he did not do anything for them. Now, he still did not do anything for them. Karma had even taken away his life. Who knew how many lives he had taken over all these years? After reading about Duan Rin's past, she roughly knew what was going on. She thought for a moment and said, when it started, it should end. She would be freed the same way she died. Duan Ro wanted to laugh, I know. Not far away, the bar was on fire again. Amidst the flames, Qiao Jin noticed that there was no one inside. Now that the firefighting facilities were in place, it was enough for everyone inside to escape. Chapter 338. It's on fire. It's on fire. Qiao Jin, brother, run. Musilian rushed downstairs and pulled Qiao Jin to run. They were not blind. Of course, they saw the bar on fire. They had to wait to be picked up tonight. The murder case had just been solved, and the bar was already on fire. Damn it, the year was too unlucky for this town. Musilian noticed that Qiao Jin did not move. He said indifferently, the fire is in the bar. It's so far away from us. Why are you panicking? Fuck, the houses in this town are all connected. What if it burns here? Mu Qilian had the foresight to be afraid, but Qiao Jin still did not move. She retracted her palm, and the extremely thick black color dissipated. She smiled. If it really burned here, we would have left long ago. Musilian stared at her. Are you crazy? Qiao Jin, yes. Musilian, Musichu also came downstairs. Seeing the fire in the distance and hearing the screams of pedestrians, his face was a little heavy. The car is here to pick us up. Let's go. This time, Qiao Jin did not say anything. He left with Musichu and the others. In the fire, she could still hear Duan Rin's screams. It was a replay of what happened 20 years ago. These painful howls were memories from back then, and only she could hear them. She had seen countless scenes more desperate than this. At this moment, her heart was as calm as still water, but it was a little different. No one knew why the bar was suddenly on fire. Fortunately, the fire prevention measures were in place, and the fire was quickly extinguished. No casualties were found, but some property damage was caused. When Qiao Jin and the others returned to the city, they were quickly taken to the airport and left on a plane. She only had time to inform Song Yanqing that she was returning to China. The school did not dare to let them stay here. When they returned to China, Qiao Fei and Mu Jinming drove to pick them up. When Qiao Fei saw them, she almost cried out, I heard that a lot of things happened to you abroad. I was so worried. Musichu said in a deep voice, Mom, we're fine. We just encountered something unexpected. As he said this, his eyes faintly swept over Qiao Jin. It's good that you're fine. Mu Jinming patted their shoulders and asked Qiao Jin and the others to get into the car. After getting into the car, Qiao Fei finally calmed down. I heard that a lot of things happened during your study trip, and a student even died. This news was too serious and could not be suppressed. There was already news from overseas. Qiao Jin said, this is something that the school should handle. She said it coldly. In fact, the current school was no longer the school of the past. The group of leaders back then had already retired due to various reasons. The principal now was not the same as before. However, there were some things that had to be paid for sooner or later. She looked out of the car window with an indifferent expression. After taking Duan Ruin's things, she naturally had to do something for her. After returning home that night, Xiao Jin received a call from Song Yanqing. He had already received the news that the school wanted Xiao Jin and the others to return to China. He only sent a message to Xiao Jin to ask if it was about the demonized array master. Xiao Jin replied yes. Song Yanqing understood and said that he would return to China soon. At least he had to find an excuse. He really had something to do abroad. When he returned, Xiao Jin would tell him the specific details of this matter. Chapter 339. The next morning, Xiao Jin went out. It was summer vacation. She wore a coat and went to the funeral home. There were photos of the new deceased hanging inside. Yao Hongyin was still smiling. She treated Duan Ruin as her classmate and bullied her wantonly. The things that happened on the trip were real, but it was the key to Duan Ruin targeting her. In short, one would not die if one did not seek death. Yao Hongyin had many family members. Her body had been brought back to the country and was about to be cremated. In front of her photo, a middle-aged woman was crying herself hoarse. Why? I knew it. Why? Why can't I avoid this? Xiao Jin saw the woman's face. Someone was supporting her. She was crying so hard that she could not stand steadily. Someone couldn't bear it and whispered, "The culprit will be caught. They will definitely be caught." No one would have thought that such a thing would happen. She was on a study trip. The woman cried even more desperately. If I had known that they were going to that place, I would never have let her go. I would never have let her go. This person looked exactly the same as the teacher in Duan Ruin's memory. Back then, she had let her teacher go because of her daughter. Now, her daughter had embarked on the same path of no return. Why? Karma came at the right time. Perhaps Duan Ruin did not know that the sacrifice she had chosen this time would be the daughter of the teacher she had let go of in a moment of kindness. Xiao Jin did not do anything. Everything was destined. She glanced at the woman and turned to leave. Duan Ruin was dead. The shackles on her were gone. Xiao Jin chose to save her. Her own karma was involved in this matter. There would be other changes. This matter would not end so easily. Even if she did not use her own means to take revenge, she had to at least let the wicked have their own end. Duan Ruin actually knew that. She was a smart child. She knew that if she took revenge, she would definitely be reduced to a puppet of the devil. When that time came, more people would die. She was an array formation master and was very powerful. She chose Xiao Jin to save her. Not only would she be free, but she would also be given justice in the future. Although she was already dead. In a villa in the empire where the sun never sets. An ear-piercing shriek rang out, "My puppet is gone. An array formation master puppet that I valued is gone. This is a puppet that was going to be a sacrifice to the emperor. It's gone just like that." Someone comforted her in a low voice. "Don't worry, Joanna. You should figure out what happened first. Why is your puppet gone? Is there anyone who can remove the restriction that the emperor gave you?" Joanna's expression turned ugly. "But there's nothing left. Gone. I can only feel that the aura from the east. Damn Huaxia people and that stinky man who ignored me. They are all Huaxia people. Why are they so arrogant? I'm going to the east. If I can't catch them, I'll kill some Chinese to vent my anger. No, no, no. Do you think Huaxia is still the Huaxia of the past? There are many array masters there, and the spirit group is also watching. You have to keep a low profile. Joanna, the emperor said that we can't cause too much trouble. He said that there might be a powerful existence in the east, so we should avoid going to Huaxia for a while. There's someone more powerful than the emperor. This conversation gradually dissipated in the air. Chapter 340. Duan Ruyan's matter was far from over. Some things had even developed beyond Xiao Jin's expectations. For example, she had caught more fish than she had expected. First of all, Yao Hongyin's death was not kept a secret from the school. This directly led to the failure of the study trip in the next few years. Those who knew Yao Hongyin were incredulous at her death. The school strongly requested the foreign police to investigate the murderer. After all, the nature of this matter was too terrible. However, the school could not shirk its responsibility. At that time, Yao Hongyin should have returned to the hotel in the city with them. No one knew why Yao Hongyin appeared in that small town at night and was hacked to death. This was undoubtedly the dereliction of duty of the leading professor and the director. But in fact, they were quite innocent. The power of the array was not something ordinary people could resist. There was another student, Duan Ruyan, who seemed to have never existed in the school's memory. In the process of the police investigation, it also attracted the attention of foreign reporters. Coincidentally, there was a big fire in the local bar. After a lot of strange things, insiders of the matter came out one after another, saying that the same thing had happened 20 years ago. A student of the school was burned to death in the hotel. The bar was the reconstruction of the hotel. Now that there was a big fire again, it was equivalent to being destroyed again. This incident happened strangely. The reporters knew that it was a matter of Huaxia. Adhering to the principle of watching a show, they investigated it. In the end, they were surprised to find that when the incident happened, the school was the same as the one they were in now. In other words, 20 years ago, this school burned a student to death, but the incident was not reported. 20 years later, the bar was on fire again, and the student of this school was hacked to death here. How big of a dereliction of duty was this? Xiao Jin's school was called Yanhui University. It was one of the top universities in China, and it was a well-known aristocratic school. Such incidents happened one after another in a university. More than a group of people were going to be laid off. The reporters directly released the news. Because it was abroad, they could not control it at all. When the school saw the news, it was too late. The reporters also interviewed the people who worked in the hotel at that time. It had been a long time, and most of the people involved at that time had disappeared. Some people had been paid to keep quiet, but in order to get rid of the responsibility of this matter, they directly came forward and said that the school did not allow them to talk about it. At that time, they had asked the students who were burned to death, and the school said that no one was in the hotel. In fact, they all knew that there was another student resting in the hotel at that time. Because of this, the person in charge of the hotel was sentenced to prison. When this matter was exposed, the world was in an uproar. Needless to say, the foreign media acted as soon as they heard the news. They couldn't wait to smear Huaxia's name as much as they could. Therefore, this time, it was another piece of evidence that could be used against Huaxia. When the country's leaders saw this, they were dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the old leaders of Yanhui University who had already retired felt their hearts turn cold. The foreign media's reports were posted on Weibo, and Weibo's trending searches exploded. #20 years ago, Yanhui University students were locked in a hotel and burned alive. #Yanhui University concealed the death of a student. #burned to death. suspected of being bullied in college. Hashtag the 3 hot searches were shocking, followed by an explosion that could not be ignored. Netizens instantly butchered these few topics to hundreds of millions of discussions. Chapter 341. I can't believe that such a cruel thing happened abroad 20 years ago. It's our Chinese compatriots. Burned alive, burned alive. Oh my God, a girl in her 20s, what kind of torture did she suffer before she died? According to the latest media report, an insider revealed that Death Girl was not feeling well at that time and was resting in the hotel. A group of students from the school went out for an activity. At that time, the hotel staff called them after work to ask if all the students were there. After all, the communication network was not very developed 20 years ago, and foreign countries had a very human right to get off work system. There was no one in the hotel. It was the students of the school who said that there was no one in the hotel. The teachers also said that there was no one in the hotel. In the end, an accident happened. Moreover, the girl seemed to be bullied, so it was obvious that they wanted to lock her up in the hotel to scare her or bully her. They did not expect that it would cause such a major tragedy. It is said that the girl who was burned to death is surnamed Duan. She is a college student that her parents painstakingly cultivated from the countryside. A female college student cultivated 20 years ago. It is really heartbreaking. It's too scary. I can't believe that this happened in Zhongbin University. This matter is so big. I don't know how many leaders of Yanhui University will be fired. Oh my God. Weibo, forums, all the places that could be discussed were in an uproar. The school was dumbfounded by this matter. All the public relations and public opinion were useless. The current principal had to shoulder the responsibility, so it was inevitable that he would be fired. In fact, the current principal was quite innocent. The main responsibility was the previous principal. The previous principal had retired now, but it was inevitable that he would be investigated. Qiao Jin's karma was too strong. The things that had been suppressed for 20 years exploded. No matter who was sitting in this position now, they would be implicated. The group of students who bullied Duan Rian back then naturally could not escape. The reason why they could escape responsibility back then was more or less because they had a strong stance. Now that the matter was exposed, in order to protect themselves, the old leaders exposed many important people. Their enemies were also eyeing them covetously. This time, they could not escape if they did not lose a layer of skin. In general, the people who killed Duan Rian back then had to pay the price. However, they were 20 years late. Justice that came late was not justice at all. Because she had been dead for 20 years, those people had enjoyed 20 more years of good times. Qiao Jin was squatting in the courtyard, fishing with Mu Xiangshan's fishing rod. She didn't even put the bait. When Mu Xiangshan came over and saw her, he glared at her. You, Jiang Taigong, are fishing willing to take the bait? Qiao Jin, yeah, I came when fate brought me here. Mu Xiangshan. You're crazy. He rolled his eyes and sat down. The old man and the young man looked at the calm surface of the pond. After a while, Mu Xiangshan suddenly said, "The matter at your school is quite big, huh?" Qiao Jin, I think so. Mu Xiangshan, looking at her lukewarm expression, he felt a little angry. Just as Mu Xiangshan was about to say something, a servant came in and reported, "Master, young Master Song is here." Mu Xiangshan, he stood up and said, "Please come in." Then, he glanced at Qiao Jin and said sarcastically, "It seems that there are still people who care about you. I don't know what kind of luck you have." With that, he left. Chapter 342. When Qiao Jin heard that Song Yanqing was here, she put down her fishing rod. Since there was no bait, she let him fish on his own. Whether or not the fish took the bait was not within her expectations. She washed her hands and walked to the living room to see Song Yanqing. Mu Xiangshan was talking to him. Since they were the only two people in the house, Mu Xiangshan naturally received him. Today, Song Yanqing was wearing an ink-colored shirt, black slim-fit casual pants, and custom-made leather shoes. His shirt was painted with many swaying bamboo leaves, which made him look even younger. His eyebrows were as cold and tough as pine and bamboo, but he also had the elegant charm of a mature man. When he saw Song Yanqing, Xiao Jin waved at him and then said to Mu Xiangshan, "Grandpa, I'm taking him to the backyard to fish." Mu Xiangshan was about to say that if he went fishing, he might not be able to eat fish until his next life. However, Song Yanqing was here, so he held back and only said, "Go ahead." Anyway, Song Yanqing was here to see Xiao Jin, so he was very clear about this fact. Song Yanqing smiled apologetically. "Grandpa Mu, I'm going with Xiao Jin." Mu Xiangshan said, "Okay. Otherwise, why would you stay and chat with me?" Song Yanqing followed Xiao Jin and saw that she was wearing a pure black one-piece dress with shoulder straps today. As she walked, she fluttered in the wind. However, she was wearing a pair of flat sandals. Her pink toes were exposed, and they were all small and cute. It was probably more convenient to look at them at home. He couldn't help but laugh. In his heart, he thought that she looked good in anything. However, her mother seemed to be in charge of her clothes. Andy had good taste. She turned her head and asked him, "What are you laughing at?" Song Yanqing said, "I'm not laughing at you." Xiao Jin said, "I feel like you're laughing at me." Song Yanqing said, "I'm just laughing. I don't mean anything else." Only then did Xiao Jin stop asking him. He brought him to the backyard, where there was a man-made fish pond. Fishing was purely a pastime, but it was a good way to pass the time. Xiao Jin said, "Do you know how to fish?" Song Yanqing said, "Yes." Xiao Jin gave him the fishing rod. "This is mine." Song Yanqing picked it up and looked at it. He couldn't help but laugh. "You're not going to use the bait?" Xiao Jin said, "Grandpa is fishing with earthworms. I don't want to touch it." Only then did she speak the truth. Song Yanqing said, "I don't like it either. Is there any other fish feed?" Xiao Jin shook his head. "I didn't take it. Should I ask someone to bring it over?" Song Yanqing put down his fishing rod. "I'm not fishing anymore. Let's sit here and talk." Xiao Jin thought for a moment. "That's fine." She sat on a small stool, looking rather well-behaved. Song Yanqing sat on a recliner next to her and looked at the scenery in front of him. He said slowly, "Have you dealt with the matter this time?" "I saw a lot of news in the country." The matter had blown up so much that he would definitely know about it. He thought for a moment and knew that it probably had something to do with Xiao Jin. After all, there couldn't be so many coincidences happening in the same town. Xiao Jin nodded. A wisp of black qi flowed out of his fingertips, but compared to the usual black, this qi was much thicker and seemed to have a halo. She said, "Let's see how the rest of the matter develops naturally. The rest has been dealt with. She will rest in peace." Song Yanqing heard her whisper and thought of the report he had seen on the news. Xiao Jin was referring to the girl who had been burned to death 20 years ago. Her death was indeed very tragic. Chapter 343. Thinking of what had happened abroad, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. "You said she ate and lived with you for several days." "It's a formation." Xiao Jin said directly, "This formation has been set up for decades and has become quite mature. So I just felt that something was wrong at that time." Usually, she acted based on her intuition outside. Now that she was still facing the backlash, she rarely set up a formation to deal with everything. If she set up a large formation, she would instantly know that something was wrong with Duan Rian. There is a chain of interests behind Duan Rian. Someone is using people like her to choose sacrifices. After all, this can make the chosen sacrifice disappear from people's memories and save a lot of trouble. Sacrifice. Song Yanqing frowned slightly. He felt that he would discover something new from Qiao Jin's story all the time. At the same time, the new term gave him a sense of discomfort. Sacrifices are sacrifices, of course. They are useful. Qiao Jin looked at Song Yanqing. The meaning in her cold eyes was obvious. Song Yanqing didn't need Qiao Jin to remind him too much. If he could be caught as a sacrifice, his fate could be imagined. He had always thought that these things would only be seen in cults. He didn't expect that a formation master would also need this kind of thing. Qiao Jin didn't want to tell him about her sworn enemy for the time being because it was her own business. The formation master who can control Duan Rian has already become a powerful formation master. They should have a large group. Otherwise, there is no need to touch Duan Rian. She carefully analyzed the situation and thought about the possibility that her sworn enemy from back then was also developing his own forces in this era. He was probably some big shot hiding behind the scenes, and the group of array masters he had raised was slowly surfacing. However, Qiao Jin wasn't worried about this. After she completely dealt with her backlash, the first thing she would do was to kill him. She would eliminate all future troubles. Song Yanqing frowned slightly. The things behind them shouldn't be simple. I think people like them may not only be formations but also control many things in this world, such as commerce, power, and finance. This was very natural. With power, they would never be satisfied with the status quo. They will control everything that is within their reach. Song Yanqing speculated based on Qiao Jin's words. There is an organization behind this. There are several famous organizations abroad that control many people. I don't know if it has anything to do with this organization. Maybe. Qiao Jin got to the point. The spirit group has a lot to do with them, but the spirit group may not know what they are doing behind the scenes. Just like how the spirit group was controlled by different families, there should also be similar organizations controlled overseas. I've killed Duan Rian this time. They can't find me, but some of them will suffer the backlash. They'll probably come to Huaxia soon. Song Yanqing's expression was a little solemn. He realized that from now on, the world would begin to be in turmoil. But I have another thing to tell you this time. He looked at Qiao Jin seriously. Qiao Jin raised his eyebrows. You found someone to swap your life providence with? Song Yanqing said, it's just a guess. It's possible. He took out his phone and pulled up a news report. It's quite surprising. Qiao Jin took a closer look and found that it was a photoshopped fashion magazine photo. Even so, he could still see the other party's astonishing appearance. The mixed-race American superstar, Ferdinand. Chapter 344. Qiao Jin let out an "aw" and said, it's pretty. Song Yanqing, Qiao Jin said, but you're the best looking. Song Yanqing had to admit that this sentence pleased him. He couldn't help but laugh. Guess why I think it's him? Qiao Jin glanced at him. Intuition. Just like her own intuition, she had noticed something wrong with this person the moment she saw him. It was as if someone else's face had grown on his body. Of course, this didn't mean that he had plastic surgery or anything. It was just a metaphor. It was as if he had stolen something from someone else. But it was probably too eye-catching, so Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing had never thought of starting with a well-known person. They hadn't expected him to be so high profile. I happened to see his photo when I went abroad this time. I felt that he was very familiar at first glance, as if he was. Song Yanqing raised his eyebrows. Another me in this world. In fact, he doesn't look like me at all. Even Yi doesn't think that we are similar at all. First, I got someone to investigate and ruled out the fact that he might be my brother. The rest is the truth. If he wasn't your brother, then he was the one who swapped fate. Just as Qiao Jin trusted his intuition, Song Yanqing also trusted his intuition. After he became a spiritualist, some of his intuitions were terrifyingly accurate. Ferdinand hadn't actually appeared before. He had only appeared recently. A TV series had become a hit in the entire United States. Even China was shocked. He had a lot of fans, almost all over the world, all because he had an intoxicating and peerless face. He was also the son of the retired former world superstar, Louisa. Louisa's husband was a mysterious super-rich man in China with a powerful background. Song Yanqing didn't tell his father for the time being. Instead, he chose to tell Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin's reaction made him even more certain that he had found the right person. Qiao Jin looked at the other party for a long time and suddenly revealed a strange smile. I think the other party must have raised the objection of his family to become a celebrity. If it were me, I would definitely not let someone who stole someone else's life providence be so high profile. It was because he was too high profile that he was immediately discovered. Of course, if it weren't for Qiao Jin, this matter might not have been discovered. But there were no ifs. Even though he had discovered Ferdinand, he wasn't anxious. He just slowly asked Qiao Jin, actually, I'd like to know, what's the difference between him swapping my fate and myself? There's a big difference. Qiao Jin said, you still have some things that are deceived, and you've been tainted with his bad luck. He should be the one who's weak, not you. And the most important thing is your luck. If it weren't for him, you would have led the Song family to a better stage long ago, and not be like this now. Of course, to be specific, your luck being taken away by him is the biggest disadvantage. Song Yanqing suddenly smiled and said, actually, I don't think my luck is too bad. At least, I still met you, right? Qiao Jin pinched his chin and looked up at him, a little puzzled. Those bottomless black pupils were like obsidian, full of charming brilliance. At this moment, he was looking at him attentively. Qiao Jin thought for a moment and said, actually, what you said makes sense. It means that your luck is stronger than I thought. Song Yanqing. Chapter 345. The topic returned to Ferdinand. The two of them looked at Ferdinand's information. From the information, Ferdinand had been abroad since he was a child, which corresponded to their initial guess. Secondly, his mother was a foreigner, so it was more likely that his father had handled it. Qiao Jin asked, who's his father? Song Yanqing said, Shi Kanyun, a very powerful person. He was also a famous star in China at the end of the last century. With the wealth he accumulated in the entertainment industry and the help of a woman, he entered the business world and started some illegal activities. Later, after the country strictly controlled him, he went ashore and started a legitimate business. Now, his business is very large, and he has some dealings with our Song family. Qiao Jin heard the main point. With the help of a woman. That woman can't be Louisa, right? Song Yanqing's lips curled up slightly. He gave Qiao Jin a more straightforward explanation. She's probably his mistress. Although he might not have been willing, he was a star at that time. Even if he wasn't willing, it was his own choice. Later, Shi Kanyun was also a ruthless person. He used this woman to make a fortune, and when he rose, he kicked her away. He also met Louisa with his appearance. There was no news of the woman who had once kept Sir Canyon. Only Sir Canyon knew where she had gone. Xiao Jin was deep in thought. Sir Canyon's information could still be found now. After all, he was also a well-known star back then. If it weren't for his outstanding face, he wouldn't have been so infatuated by the rich woman. There were many rich women who wanted to spend money for Sir Canyon back then. However, this man was poisonous. There was no news of him in recent years. It seemed that he had disappeared at the beginning of this century. He didn't expect to find a wife in the entertainment industry. Now, his son also wanted to be in the entertainment industry. It was probably his genes. Ferdinand's genes entered the entertainment industry, so it was destined that he would become popular. Xiao Jin looked and concluded, it's not their family who swapped their fate. It should be someone they know. The cost of swapping fate was huge. If they swapped it themselves, there would be all kinds of abnormalities. However, there was nothing wrong with Louisa and Schertzonyan's information. That could only mean that someone had helped them switch. He's actually willing to help a child change his fate. What's the story behind this? Xiao Jin stroked his chin in amusement. Song Yanqing then asked the key question, if I want to change my life chart back, what do I need to do? You don't have to do anything. Xiao Jin stood up and said, it's easy to change a fate chart. You don't need to kill Ferdinand. You just need to destroy the spiritual seed of the array master who changed the fate chart. Even if he dies, his spiritual seed will still be there. Once his spiritual seed disappears, the array he set up will also disappear. Then, the fate chart will naturally return. So you have to keep an eye on Ferdinand and see who he contacts. After a pause, Xiao Jin said, it's best to investigate his parents. I don't think they told Ferdinand that his life was stolen. If he knew, he would never appear in the entertainment industry. This is a very dangerous thing. Song Yanqing speculated playfully, maybe he knows, but he's very confident. Even if I find out, I can't do anything to him. Chapter 346. Xiao Jin said, that's fine. I'm here. She just couldn't find them now, but that was because they still had to survive. Xiao Jin was never afraid of anyone if they were to face them head-on. Of course, even if she were to play dirty now, she wouldn't give anyone an opportunity to take advantage of her. As she thought of this, a memory suddenly flashed through her mind. She remembered that she had been set up by her old rival, but she couldn't remember how. She only vaguely remembered a sentence. We were born different from humans. They were meant to be slaves. Why do you have to treat them well? She didn't know who said this, but it was obvious that she wouldn't say such inhumane words. Song Yanqing didn't feel uncomfortable with such protective words. He just smiled faintly and said, yes, I feel very safe with you around. Xiao Jin, you're my friend. As a friend, I will be your most solid support. Song Yanqing couldn't help but laugh. You're right. So, if you have any problems in other areas, I can also be your most solid support. Xiao Jin, I don't have any problems. Song Yanqing, how did you do on the exam? Xiao Jin. I think it was pretty good. Of course, compared to Song Yanqing, who was once favored by the heavens, excellent results might not mean much to him. Song Yanqing, then you've improved. It's fine as long as you do better than before. We can take it slow. After all, you're still 2 years away from graduation. Xiao Jin nodded. Yes, it's summer vacation now. It's time for me to rest. This arrangement was quite reasonable. Students would have 2 months of entertainment time in addition to studying. Of course, these 2 months were for Xiao Jin. The other students would also work hard during the summer vacation and participate in a lot of tutoring and other professional skills. Just like Musilian and Musichu. Even Musilian, who didn't do a proper job, would participate in various activities with his brother. Rich second-generation activities like horse racing and golf were elegant and cultivated sentiments. Of course, these activities were never part of Xiao Jin's consideration. Even though Xiao Fei had mentioned it many times, he didn't give up when he saw that she wasn't interested. Song Yanqing also mentioned this matter. Actually, you can find something to do during the summer vacation. Like your brother, you can make more friends. When he said this sentence, he had some inexplicable hesitation in his heart. He did not understand the source of this hesitation. Such a powerful child could actually have a wider world, but Song Yanqing felt that there was no need to make new friends. It was as if Xiao Jin was his only friend. Xiao Jin, not interested. She was too lazy to do things that she didn't want to do. It was the same reason that she was too lazy to change her WeChat name. This answer was not out of Song Yanqing's expectations. He thought for a moment. It's boring to stay at home all the time. I'm going to play chess with a master in the afternoon. Do you want to come and watch? In the past, when he was bored at home, he rarely interacted with people of the same age. Basically, he accompanied some very old people to play chess. After all, quiet entertainment that tested one's patience had become an extra pastime now. Xiao Jin was a little confused. Play chess. Song Yanqing, go. Xiao Jin thought for a moment and nodded. Okay. Chapter 347. A special guest came to Jia Ink shop today. This was a relatively low-key club, and the distinguished guests who came and went were basically old people. The environment here was quiet and pleasant, so it was very popular among the old people. Today, however, a curious customer came to the ink shop. Many of the old people who had seen big scenes, and even those who used to be all-powerful in society, were now craning their necks and looking curiously in one direction. In the go-room of the family's ink shop, there was an indescribably handsome and rich young master sitting upright, playing chess with an elderly man. If other people were here, they would probably exclaim in surprise when they saw the old man. However, this old man was a little absent-minded while playing chess. From time to time, he would look sideways in one direction. After the elegant young master placed a chess piece, he looked at him slightly. It's rare to see you not paying attention when playing chess. Cough. The old man suddenly coughed loudly, and then retracted his gaze. It's not like you suddenly dropped a bomb today, it really made people curious. Song Yanqing just smiled helplessly. I used to bring back a lot of rare things from abroad, but I've never seen you like this. Today, I brought someone here, why are you so curious? That's different, that's different. At the mention of this, the old man was excited. He didn't even care about placing a chess piece. He looked at the back of a figure. Recently, I've heard people talking about it. Could it be true? You've brought her here, so she must be extraordinary. It's the first time in so many years. I'm very pleased. He looked in the direction of the calligraphy and painting shop opposite. Although the museum wasn't big, the collection was something that even the museums outside would be envious of. A girl in a white pantsuit was looking at these things curiously. She didn't know much, she was just curious. Now, people felt that what attracted attention was not the calligraphy and paintings themselves, but this beautiful figure. Even these old people who had countless outstanding children had to admit that this girl was the most eye-catching they had ever seen. Not only was she beautiful, but her temperament was really rare. If she was born in their era, who knew how many distinguished scholars would bow down to her? Now, it was, It was not surprising that the young master of the Song family had taken a fancy to her. Moreover, this indirectly proved that young Master Song's taste was really good. He hadn't made a move for 25 years, but now, he had picked the best one. Song Yanqing smiled faintly. You think too much. We're just friends now. Friends? When the old man heard this, he actually had a somewhat disgusted expression. I still don't believe my grandson's words. It's fine if I believe that you're not gay, but now you still say that you're a friend? Don't tell me you want to learn from those bastards. You're not that kind of person. Song Yanqing, it's still too early for a young lady to understand these things. The old man was a little surprised. Really? How could there still be young people who didn't understand these ambiguous feelings? Especially in the imperial capital. Don't blame him for looking at people through colored glasses. It was really rare to find such a pure and innocent person in this day and age. Song Yanqing, it's true. She was smarter than others in some aspects, but that was because the things she came into contact with were different from ordinary people. She actually didn't know much about worldly feelings. Song Yanqing had already seen through it. Chapter 348. Tisk, tsk, tsk, tisk. The old man was even more curious. How could he not understand Song Yanqing these days? He could only say that the young lady was really ruthless. He glanced at Xiao Jin again and continued to ask, do you have such thoughts? Song Yanqing paused slightly when he heard that. He lowered his eyes and then smiled. It was like the moon in the wind. One could only see the beauty, but one could not understand the meaning behind it. I can't deny it, but I can't be sure either. He was only slightly moved, perhaps because Xiao Jin was different from the rest. However, before he was completely confident, he would not easily reveal anything. After all, he could see that Xiao Jin did not have such thoughts at all. She was extremely pure. Song Yanqing did not want to rush to disrupt this beauty. How rare. The old man had only heard rumors from his grandson that Song Yanqing had not found a girlfriend for more than 20 years. Even if it was due to physical reasons, it was either a physical problem, a mental problem, or a homosexual. Later on, they were all suspicious. Now that he saw this, he was much more relieved. That's good. No wonder there had been rumors a while ago. Now it seemed that it was not groundless. To be able to be close to Song Yanqing was somewhat special. Ji Pingan is here, someone whispered. The old man and Song Yanqing both heard it. Naturally, Xiao Jin also heard it. Her eyes only moved slightly, then she focused on the calligraphy in front of her. She did not understand it, but she could feel some of the artistic conception. She only felt that this person's drawing was very beautiful. Ji Pingan walked in from outside with his hands behind his back, frowning slightly. When he saw everyone, a kind smile appeared on his face. After greeting each of them, he came to the chess room where Song Yanqing and the old man were. Old Kai, I knew you were playing chess with Yanqing again. How was the game? When Ji Pingan saw the old man, he smiled. The old man was called Bai Jiangkai. He was their good friend. Bai Jiangkai laughed loudly and said, it's only been a while. Yanqing's chess skills are getting more and more ridiculous. It's hard for me to win a game against him. Ji Pingan rebutted, you've been like this since a few years ago. You don't have to say such polite words. Bai Jiangkai said, go away. Ji Pingan also laughed, and the frown on his face eased a little. Song Yanqing also called out gently, Grandpa Ji, long time no see. Ji Pingan nodded. How have you been recently? Song Yanqing said, not bad. Ji Pingan, that's good. He stood at the side and watched the game between the two of them. Clearly, he was prepared to watch the game. Bai Jiangkai and Song Yanqing looked at each other. After placing down their black pieces, Bai Jiangkai said faintly, "Olden, it's best if you don't worry too much about the matters of the children. At our age, what else do you want? Wasn't he just trying to make himself feel better? Why do you care so much? You still can't get anything good out of it." He snorted coldly. When Ji Pingan heard this, he was a little worried. He could only sigh. I wish. Many things had happened in the Ji family recently. This matter was related to Ji Fanjing. Everyone knew that his mother was a mistress back then. Ji Pingan's elder brother was already old, and now was the best time to fight for power. Under his father's arrangement, Ji Fanjing was going to enter the company's headquarters to start an internship. At first, he was given a small management position, but he was squeezed by his second brother's people. Ji Fanjing was made a basic intern, but he couldn't do anything. Chapter 349. It would have been fine if that was the case, but Ji Fanjing's mother was not convinced. She rarely came back, and because of this, she had been telling Ji Chiyue about it. Ji Chiyue was also confused, so he told his father about it. Ji Pingan could not say anything to him, so he could only go to his eldest brother. His eldest brother rearranged it, and his second brother's family was beside him. In other words, they were saying that Ji Fanjing was just the child of a mistress, and he was an illegitimate child back then. Even if he was promoted, he would still be an illegitimate child. Ji Pingan was so angry that he choked. It had been so many years, and he had already accepted what happened back then. Moreover, he had watched Ji Fanjing grow up. No matter what, he was still his biological grandson. How could he listen to it? He was not convinced, so he said a few words to his second brother. Unexpectedly, his eldest brother was so angry that he was sent to the hospital again, and this news spread. That was why it was said that every family had their own difficulties. Ji Pingan said, "She's making a fuss every day. It's impossible to pretend that you didn't hear it. Big brother has already rearranged it. She wants her son to be the manager directly, and it's in the headquarters of the group. She doesn't even think about whether it's suitable or not. You have to at least be able to convince people." Although he didn't let his parents become university teachers or people's teachers when he was fighting for the world, he should be part of the group of professors now. However, the Ji family also provided a lot of help in business. Later on, when his parents were old, Ji Pingan's temperament became gentler. He merged with the family business and only took shares, but left his son with a lot of benefits. At least his two brothers did not take advantage of him. Now, because of his grandson, things were getting ugly. Ji Pingan said as he looked at Song Yanqing. "If I had a grandson like Yanqing, I think my eldest brother would have no objections even if I asked him to give up his position." Song Yanqing laughed. "Grandpa Ji, you're exaggerating," Bai Jiangkai mocked Ji Pingan. "Go away, you don't have that fortune. Besides, what do you think of Triumphant Return by saying that? Triumphant Return is not bad either." Ji Triumphant Return was the outstanding grandson that his eldest brother had nurtured. In terms of ability, he was definitely better than other young masters, but his temper was indeed a little too strange. "Ji Pingan, old Master Ji, we meet again." While Ji Pingan was still sighing, he suddenly heard a clear voice. He looked up and saw that it was Qiao Jin. He was a little surprised. "Little girl, you're here too." He had seen this girl a few times and had always had a deep impression of her. Qiao Jin smiled and said, "Yes." Seeing Qiao Jin, for some reason, Ji Pingan felt that the irritation in his heart had calmed down. This girl seemed to have the ability to make people feel better. He also smiled and said, "Young people nowadays rarely like this place." There aren't many who are willing to be meticulous here. Bai Jiang pouted. Guanqing brought him here. Ji Pingan was a little surprised. However, when he thought of some rumors, he put away his surprise. It was a pity, he felt that Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin were both outstanding. At that time, he had even thought of marriage. However, it was difficult to find someone in the Ji family who was compatible with Song Yanqing, so he gave up. As for Qiao Jin, he had also thought about it. At first, he wanted to do what Mu Xiangshan said, but later, no one was good enough for Qiao Jin. He felt that she would be wronged if she was matched with anyone. It was a pity. If Triumphant Return's temper wasn't bad, Ji Pingan would have wanted to be the matchmaker. However, he could not harm Qiao Jin. Chapter 350. He didn't expect that these two children, who were both outstanding in his heart, would play together. Now that he looked at it, it was true that outstanding people should play with outstanding people. As for what was so outstanding about Qiao Jin, he couldn't quite put his finger on it. But he just felt that she was outstanding. There was also an indescribable sense of intimacy. He had a good impression of Qiao Jin. Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin and felt that there was a deeper meaning behind her smile. Qiao Jin hadn't told Song Yanqing about her relationship with Ji Pingan, so Song Yanqing only vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't guess why. Ji Pingan smiled kindly. Do you know how to play chess? Qiao Jin, no. Ji Pingan, it's okay, you can learn. Qiao Jin glanced at the complicated Go game. You can play Gamoku. Although she could learn it quickly, she wasn't willing. She had played Gamoku on her phone before. Ji Pingan, fine, Gamoku it is. In the last room, there were two tables. Song Yanqing and Bai Jiangkai played Go, while Qiao Jin and Ji Pingan played Gamoku. It was a harmonious scene. After a while, Song Yanqing saw that it was about time. He got up and said goodbye to Bai Jiangkai. He was going to take Qiao Jin to dinner. Ji Pingan and Qiao Jin played Gamoku for so long. Although it was simple, they found it interesting. It was better than listening to people cry at home. When Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing left, Ji Pingan sighed. What a perfect match. My family can't find a match for you. Bai Jiangkai laughed. Who hasn't thought of this before? But young people nowadays are pursuing their own love. Old fogies like us shouldn't get involved in their affairs. If they got involved, there would be restless things like Ji Qiue. And there were many of them now. Ji Pingan said faintly, that's right. When Qiao Jin was sent home that night, he took some time to check Weibo. She usually didn't pay much attention to it. In fact, it was because of Duan Ruyan. After a day of hot searches, there were still no signs of it subsiding. All kinds of things that had happened in the past were exposed. There were even rumors that the classmates who had bullied Duan Ruyan back then were now married and had children. Their children were about to go to college, and they were being harassed and bombarded by netizens. It could be considered a different kind of retribution. However, this alone was far from enough. The previous principal of Yanhui University had retired a long time ago, but he still had to take responsibility. It was worth mentioning that Duan Ruyan's parents did not show up. Back then, they were just an ordinary couple in the countryside. She didn't know how they were doing now. Qiao Jin did not deliberately think about it. Back then, the couple had already received compensation. Now that the incident had happened again, someone would come to apologize. Moreover, he had once sensed through Duan Ruyan that she should still have a younger sister. He just didn't have time to tell her. She was probably the child her parents gave birth to after they lost her. At least that was a consolation. However, at night, Xiao Jin suddenly opened his eyes. She had already fallen asleep, but she suddenly turned over and sat up in bed. In the blink of an eye, a red dot flashed. Through these, she saw something she had never seen before. She frowned. It was not her nature to be nosy. It was just that, who asked her to take her things? She should be responsible for the aftermath. She sensed a special scene. It was very likely that it was Duan Ruin's younger sister whom she had never met. Why did she sense it? It was probably because the other party was also an array master. Chapter 351. Disregarding the storm on Weibo, today's high-end residential district was very peaceful. It was already very late, but the row of houses was still lit. Not only was it bustling, but it was also very warm. A 17 or 18-year-old girl stood downstairs and looked up at the house, her eyes filled with coldness. If she hadn't seen her elder sister's matter on Weibo, she probably wouldn't have known that her elder sister's death was so tragic. Her parents had given birth to her when they were old. She had only vaguely heard them say that she had an elder sister who had passed away in an accident before she was born. Because they were too sad, they had given birth to her. She felt an indescribable regret toward the elder sister she had never seen before. She had only seen her sister's picture. Now that she had seen the news on Weibo, if she hadn't confirmed that her elder sister's name and appearance were exactly the same as the one she had seen and heard, she wouldn't have dared to believe that her elder sister had died so tragically. It was no wonder her parents had never talked about her elder sister. She was furious. Her elder sister was so outstanding. How could the person who had bullied her back then still be alive? She had been different since she was young. She didn't know why she had such a special ability. She seemed to be able to make use of things that others couldn't see to create the effect she wanted. It was as if she had learned it all by herself. Today, she was thinking the same thing. Her eyes were red. Through some information, she had learned that the person who had bullied her elder sister lived here. She couldn't go up to the high-end residential district, but she could set it on fire. Back then, her elder sister had been trapped in a hotel and burned to death. Why couldn't this family do the same? Strange dots flickered in her eyes. With a move of her finger, she connected those dots and trapped them in the apartment building, gradually forming the image of a flame. The flame gradually expanded, and only she could see it. Accompanied by the rising flames, it slowly descended on the floor of the apartment building she had seen earlier. As long as the flame entered, their house would instantly be set on fire. She would be able to avenge her elder sister. Hong. She didn't notice that along with her movements, black chi was slowly floating around her, waiting for the flame to rise into the air. Paw! A hand suddenly landed on her shoulder. Duan Nianru was startled. The formation shattered, and she turned around to see an exquisite girl. She really looked like someone who had walked out of a TV series. Her long hair reached her waist and was slightly curled. There were even a few strands of hair floating in front of her forehead. Coupled with her cold face, she looked very much like a princess from a manga she had read. She was so surprised that her mouth opened slightly. "What are you doing?" A cold person spoke in a cold and cheerless manner. His voice had a different kind of air to it. That pair of eyes locked onto her, making her feel as if she had nowhere to hide. Duan Nianru's face turned red as she stuttered, Who are you?" Firstly, she felt a little guilty. She had never shown this kind of power in front of others before. She also knew that she was not normal, so she was afraid that she would be treated as a freak and captured for research. At this moment, she was afraid that Xiao Jin would notice something unusual. Xiao Jin sneered, "You don't need to know who I am, but what do you want to do? Do you think killing their entire family will solve this matter?" She glanced at her surroundings and saw that the black airflow had disappeared silently and gradually dissipated. Chapter 352. Xiao Jin's words caused Duan Nianru's face to turn pale. What are you talking about? I'm just passing by. She didn't dare to admit that she wanted to kill this family. Xiao Jin said, if you want to target someone, you shouldn't target this family. Apart from her, no one else in this family has done anything wrong. If you kill them, you'll only be seriously eroded. It's not easy for your family to give birth to two formation masters. Don't disappoint your sister. Duan Nianru was dumbfounded. You? Who are you? She was shocked. Xiao Jin looked around. There were surveillance cameras in the vicinity of this high-end residential area. If he stayed here for too long, he would be suspicious. Come with me. Duan Nianru bit her lip. She didn't dare to believe that Xiao Jin was a stranger. However, his words gave her a feeling of trust. She didn't want to refuse. Xiao Jin had already turned around. Looking at Xiao Jin's back, she hesitantly followed. But when she turned back to look at the apartment building, she felt somewhat unwilling. When they arrived at the bustling street, Xiao Jin asked, "Have you eaten?" Duan Nianru was about to say that she had eaten when her stomach began to rumble. Her face turned even redder. She had been too shocked by the news and had rushed to the capital. She hadn't had time to eat and had used the excuse of going to her classmate's house to play. She had to go back tomorrow. She felt that if she did it flawlessly, no one would suspect her. She could go back and act as if nothing had happened. She didn't know where that thought had come from. She was just too angry. Her sister's death was the responsibility of those people. Why were they able to live without caring about anything until now? On what basis? Every year, on the anniversary of her sister's death, she would see her white-haired parents crying in front of her sister's grave. She didn't know why in the past. She only felt that after so many years, her parents still couldn't let go. Only now did she know who could let go. Her daughter had died so miserably. She had never met her elder sister, but she felt that she was the best person in the world. She was her younger sister, so she should avenge her elder sister. Xiao Jin saw her face change rapidly and chuckled. Shall I treat you to a meal? Who are you? Duan Nianru asked suspiciously. Xiao Jin, your sister's friend. Duan Nianru, soon, her face turned even redder. Who are you trying to fool? My sister has been dead for 20 years, and you look only 20 years old. How can you be my sister's friend? After saying that, she reacted and became even more flustered. No, you know who my sister is. Xiao Jin said, hurry up. You're wandering alone in the middle of the night. Aren't you afraid that if you get caught, your parents will lose you as well? Duan Nianru subconsciously retorted, of course not. I'm not afraid even if I encounter bad people. She had the ability to resist all of this. Xiao Jin sneered. Do you think you're the only formation master in this world? A formation master who didn't belong to anyone was simply a delicious cake placed in front of those people. If they learned that Duan Nianru had a younger sister who was also a formation master, she would be doomed. Formation. What is a formation master? Duan Nianru asked impulsively. In truth, she didn't even know what this world was. She didn't even know that she was a formation master. She only thought that her special ability was a gift from the heavens. Chapter 353. It was indeed a blessing, but it would also lead to many dangers. In the end, Duan Nianru left with Xiao Jin out of curiosity. She hadn't eaten yet. She had thought that Xiao Jin would bring her somewhere, but they had ended up at a fast food restaurant that was open 24 hours a day. Duan Nianru, it didn't seem too good to discuss such matters in this place. Furthermore, she felt that the fairy-like Qiao Jin shouldn't have come to such a place. However, Qiao Jin had come. It was already late at night, and there weren't many people eating. The fast food restaurant was large, so they could find a place in the corner where no one would disturb them. When the waiter saw Qiao Jin, he was a bit surprised. Handsome people were treated differently. Even when he was ordering, the waiter spoke softly, afraid that Qiao Jin would be dissatisfied if he was too loud. After casually ordering a few sets, Duan Nianru whispered, "You ordered too much. We can't finish it. It's a waste. Qiao Jin, you can just eat whatever you want." Duan Nianru, the two of them found a corner and sat down. Duan Nianru was conflicted, but she still asked, "You said that you're my big sister's friend. Is that true?" "My big sister has already passed away for 20 years. Furthermore, the news had revealed her big sister's matter recently." Duan Nianru was very suspicious that Qiao Jin had come here with other motives. She had seen on the news that the leaders who had concealed the matter back then would be punished. Could it be that he had been sent here by the leaders? Qiao Jin rested his elbows on the table and tilted his body slightly to look at her. "When did your powers appear?" "What?" Duan Nianru's eyes flickered. "I really don't know what you're talking about." Her vigilance was strong enough. Qiao Jin smiled. "It's good to have vigilance, and it's also good to have ability. However, you shouldn't use your ability to do things you can't do. If your big sister knew about this, she wouldn't be happy. Besides, you still have your parents. They're already old, and it wasn't easy for them to raise you. You shouldn't waste your life on this. Those people aren't worth it." Hearing that, Duan Nianru felt even more guilty. She had truly come to the capital in a fit of rage, and she hadn't thought too much about it. After all, she was only 18 years old. She hadn't been an adult for long, so she couldn't think properly about some things. It was also because of his young age that he was easily forced out by Qiao Jin. But did my sister die in vain? I've seen those people. The news said that at most, they'll be condemned morally, but they won't be punished by the law. I can't accept this from my sister." Her eyes reddened at the mention of her sister. Qiao Jin said, "You are only 18 years old this year. You have never seen your sister. Why do you still want to avenge her?" "Because she's my sister." Duan Nianru choked. "Although I haven't seen her, my parents have told me many times that she's very outstanding and kind. Back then, she relied on her own efforts to get into a top-tier university. She was the best student in our university. She should have had a bright future. My parents should be enjoying their lives instead of working so hard to raise me. So, why can't my kind sister get a good karma? You also know that your parents are working hard to raise you. In that case, you shouldn't do something that will ruin the rest of your life." Chapter 354. In truth, Qiao Jin wasn't very happy to persuade a child. If this person had been a stranger, he wouldn't have cared. However, this girl was Duan Ruin's little sister. She had just taken Duan Ruin's demonic spirit seed, so she couldn't just ignore it. Furthermore, her little sister was also a formation master. This family's genes were truly miraculous. It was already difficult for an average family to produce a single magus, let alone 2 magic array masters in one family. There were also very few families like the Zhongli family where both siblings were spirit readers. If Duan Nianru went astray because of this matter and was used by the people who controlled her sister, that would be a tragedy. Duan Nianru was startled. I won't be discovered. You're dreaming. Do you think you're the only one with special abilities in this world? If you dare to make a move, the secret organization will find out where you are in a few days at most and then capture you. If you are caught by the people who used your sister, not only will your life be ruined, your parents won't be able to live either. Duan Nianru was frightened. When she heard that they used her sister, she was shocked. Who used my sister? Your sister is also a spirit reader. Xiao Jin sighed. As if he was teaching a child some small knowledge, he explained the existence of spirit readers in this world, as well as her sister's matter. Since she wanted to take revenge for her sister, she was also someone who valued relationships and righteousness. Then she should know that there were other people behind the scenes. Those who had bullied her sister would suffer retribution. They would punish them in the real world. Karma already existed. Even if the law couldn't punish them, death wasn't the only punishment in this world. While he was talking, the fast food restaurant brought out several plates. There was a large pile of fast food in front of the two girls. At this time, Duan Nianru felt like she had lost her appetite. After listening to Xiao Jin's story, she couldn't stop her tears from flowing. My sister, she really had a bitter life. It was one thing for her to die tragically, but even after her death, she hadn't been able to live in peace for such a long time. Duan Nianru looked somewhat similar to Duan Ruyan, but she had probably been carefully taken care of by her parents since she was young. There was a hot-bloodedness in her that Duan Ruyan didn't have. So when she did such a thing, she didn't consider the consequences. She only thought that she had a special ability that allowed her to do things without being discovered. Now that she knew the severity of the situation, she felt even sadder for her sister. Hearing her sobs, the waiters looked over curiously. Xiao Jin calmly drank a cup of warm orange juice as he watched Duan Nianru cry. A 17 or 18-year-old child was really too young. The waiter didn't know if something bad had happened. He came over to ask Xiao Jin, but Xiao Jin just shook his head. The waiter saw that there was no other abnormality, so he didn't come over to ask. Since they were all in the shop, they could see everything. Duan Nianru cried for over 10 minutes. She couldn't stop crying, and in the end, she started hiccuping. She couldn't even feel her hunger anymore. When she was done crying, she choked with sobs and asked, "Then, who was the one who harmed my sister?" Xiao Jin said, "They'll appear sooner or later. You don't need to be anxious. You're 18 this year. Did you go to university?" Duan Nianru nodded. "I just finished my college entrance exam and came to the capital." Chapter 355. It just so happened that she had just finished her college entrance exam. She had also come to the capital. But compared to her sister, her grades weren't that outstanding. She had only gotten into an ordinary university in the capital. It wasn't far from Xiao Jin's place, and it was only 5 or 6 stops away. Duan Nianru's parents didn't have much hope for her. Perhaps it was because of Duan Ruyan, but they felt that it was better for her to not have outstanding grades. Originally, they didn't want Duan Nianru to choose the capital. After all, something had happened here that had broken their hearts. But after learning that her sister had also entered the capital, Duan Nianru thought of this. She wanted to know if she could find traces of her sister. As a result, she saw the news on Weibo. "My parents have already agreed to move to the capital. They will come to the capital to take care of me." Duan Nianru's parents were still worried. So when she came over, they would rent a house outside to take care of Duan Nianru. Duan Nianru's parents had relied on the compensation money to start a small business. They didn't have to worry about their lives. If it wasn't for Duan Nianru's birth, they might have already lost hope. Xiao Jin didn't care about other people's matters. He only said, "There are advantages and disadvantages to moving to the capital. The capital is different from the cities you've been to. There's the spirit group here. If you don't want to join the spirit group, it's best if they don't know that you're a formation master. This was especially true when the spirit group didn't know about the existence of a formation master. Duan Nianru carefully looked at Xiao Jin. You said that you made a deal with my sister's soul. Who are you? Xiao Jin smiled. I'm just an ordinary second-year student. Oh, I'll be in my third year soon. Duan Nianru, as if. She knew so many things and knew that she was a formation master. How could she make a deal with her sister? How could she be an ordinary university student? Thinking of her sister who had already disappeared, Duan Nianru's expression dimmed. You're so young, but your ferocity isn't small. You want to kill an entire family as soon as you make a move. Xiao Jin evaluated what she wanted to do. You should know that abilities are bestowed by the heavens, and there are corresponding shackles. If you do something to someone else, it is very likely that they will retaliate against you in the same way in the future. Got it? Duan Nianru frowned. Then what's the use of this ability? Xiao Jin, that depends on how you use it. You can hide your identity and be an ordinary person for the rest of your life and pretend that you don't have this ability. Didn't you maintain it well before? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been discovered for so many years. Duan Nianru lowered her head in silence. Xiao Jin said, remember, no one can bind you. What binds you is your own heart. If you have any malicious thoughts, you will be like your sister and be demonized. That is not what your sister wants to see. Duan Nianru looked at her expectantly. Will those people really suffer retribution? Xiao Jin nodded. There will be. Only now did Duan Nianru trust Xiao Jin somewhat. She picked up a hamburger and slowly ate it. What's your name? Xiao Jin had said so much, but she still didn't know Xiao Jin's name. Xiao Jin. Duan Nianru, which character? Xiao Jin. Xiao from Xiao Qian, Jin from today. Duan Nianru nodded. It's a bit strange. How about I call you Big Sister Xiao? Chapter 356. Xiao Jin. Do as you wish. Duan Nianru was younger than her, so she could call her whatever she wanted. Xiao Jin didn't care about this. After all, calling her big sister didn't mean she treated her as a younger sister. Duan Nianru took out her phone. Can I add you as a friend? Ignoring everything else, Xiao Jin was truly handsome. Duan Nianru felt that she could brag to her classmates that she had met a beautiful big sister. Moreover, she wouldn't be alone in the capital in the future. She could look for Xiao Jin. Of course, that was what she thought, but it did not mean that Xiao Jin thought the same. Xiao Jin indifferently took out his phone and added Duan Nianru's WeChat. She had come to persuade Duan Nianru not to let her big sister down. If Duan Nianru still refused to come to her senses, Xiao Jin wouldn't care about her a second time. Duan Nianru had come to the capital very suddenly. She had only booked an ordinary hotel. Xiao Jin sent her to the hotel before leaving. Duan Nianru looked at Xiao Jin's WeChat name and fell into a daze. Such a fairy-like big sister, and her WeChat name was also quite cute. Xiao Jin had gone out in the middle of the night, and by the time he returned, it was already very late. As a result, he just happened to run into Musilian, who had just come back from the disco. Musilian had been tiptoeing around, and the entire Mu family was already very quiet. But who would have thought that as soon as he took a step, he would see a white-clothed figure outside the door. If he hadn't immediately restrained himself, Musilian was afraid he would have screamed out loud. Fuck! Why had Sadako appeared in the middle of the night? Sadako takes 2 steps forward, and Mu Qilian can see clearly with the help of the street lamp that it is his cheap sister. Mu Zilian was almost scared out of his wits. He hastily whispered, "What are you doing out in the middle of the night?" Qiao Jin said, "I went out to play." Mu Zilian, he almost choked to death. She went out to dance and came back like a thief. On the other hand, Qiao Jin went out and came back looking magnanimous. He was not afraid of being found out by Qiao Fei. They both went out in the middle of the night, so why was Qiao Jin so magnanimous? Mu Zilian felt that he had caught Qiao Jin's weakness. Going out in the middle of the night, do you still have any concept of access control? Qiao Jin, how can you say that about me? Mu Zilian, he quibbled, I'm a guy. I'm different from you girls. It's not safe for a girl like you to be outside in the middle of the night. Qiao Jin, no, I'll be safer than you. Mu Zilian. What do you mean by that? However, Qiao Jin was not prepared to explain. She went into the house. Mu Zilian was afraid that talking to her would attract the attention of the family. If Qiao Fei and the others woke up and saw that he went out to dance again, they would probably scold him again. He could do anything, but he was the #1 disco dancer. Look at Qiao Jin, who also went out to fool around, was much more magnanimous than him. Mu Zilian thought of this and felt that he was not found out. What was there to be afraid of? He puffed out his chest and went back to his room valiantly. The glass room was soundproof, so no matter how loud they were, they would not attract the attention of Qiao Fei and the others. What he was afraid of was that Qiao Fei and the others would go crazy in the middle of the night to check on him. It would be awkward if they happened to bump into him. Qiao Jin went back to her room. The demonized spirit seed on her fingertip was dispersing. She looked at it and flicked it into the array in the house. If there was a place in the world that was the safest, it would probably be the Mu family. Even if there was a war, she could protect the Mu family. This was probably the treatment that only family members had. Chapter 357. When he woke up the next morning, Qiao Jin received a special piece of news. At the same time, there was a thank you letter from Lin Si. The murder case in a foreign town had been solved. Due to China's request and the fact that the murderer was not an experienced person, he was quickly found out. It was a foreign man in his mid-20s. The reason why he did this was because he had promised someone that he would receive a huge sum of money after the deed was done. He was a drug addict and had already been hollowed out by the drug money, so he took the risk to do this kind of thing. The person who invited him to do this had a good relationship with him. He used to know him in school. Originally, everyone thought that this was an accidental murder case. They did not expect that it had already been planned and that he had hired a murderer. The person he wanted to kill was naturally Lin Si's god-sister, Zhao Rolan. The mastermind who hired the murderer was Wei Dexuan. It had only been a few days since the incident broke out. Especially after they found out that Yao Hongyin's death was an accident, the school was furious. Because of an accident, such a big thing happened. When the truth was found out, Zhao Rolan could not believe it at all. It was not until the police came to take Wei Dexuan away that the man, who realized that the matter had been exposed, knelt down in front of Zhao Rolan on the spot. Lon, I was just obsessed for a moment. I was just confused for a moment. Zhao Rolan stared blankly at the man who had been so gentle to her 2 days ago. She could not imagine that he would actually let someone raise a butcher's knife against her. Zhao Rolan's mother was so angry that her whole body was trembling. It took her a long time to stop herself from fainting. Although there were speculations, when the truth was really in front of everyone, no one could believe it. She walked up and slapped Wei Dexuan in the face. She gritted her teeth and scolded, "You beast. You're worse than a beast." The police immediately stopped her. "Madam, please don't do anything. Foreign countries paid attention to human rights. Even a confirmed mastermind who hired a murderer had human rights. Naturally, they could not let you beat him up. Of course, they understood the family's anger. Therefore, they gave them a verbal warning. Who wouldn't want to beat him to death after finding out that his son-in-law was the one who hired the hitman? At this moment, Zhao Rolan seemed to have just realized what had happened. She thought of Wei Dechuan's face from before, and then looked at Wei Dechuan, who was now crying bitterly and kneeling on the ground without any dignity. She couldn't help but feel cold all over. Her heart was so cold that it was terrifying, causing her entire body to tremble. Why did you do this? She seemed to have expended a great deal of energy to ask this question. I shouldn't have done this. I know I was wrong. Lon, please forgive me. I beg you to forgive me. You still have our child in your stomach. You have to think about the child. Zhao Roland's eyes were filled with tears. She couldn't help but cry out, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Lon, I was really possessed. I shouldn't have done this. I know I was wrong. Lon, please forgive me. You still have the cheek to talk about children. If Mother Zhao hadn't been held back by Mother Lin, she probably would have killed Wei Dechuan. Lon is still carrying your child in her stomach. How could you do such a vicious thing? You heartless thing. Even after you graduated, you entered the top 500 companies and got promoted because of us. It's fine if you don't know how to be grateful, but you're actually so crazy. You're not a thing, and you're not even human. Chapter 358. Mother Zhao was so angry that she felt dizzy. Mother Lin quickly supported her and comforted her in a low voice. She was also angry. Anyway, now that he had been caught, Wei Dechuan would be punished by the law. It was a good thing that Zhao Roland saw his true colors. Wei Dechuan was still crying over there. Zhao Roland only felt that she was numb and couldn't hear anything clearly. Yes, they still had a child. So why did Wei Dechuan not even care about the child and actually want to kill Zhao Roland? The police didn't let them talk for long and quickly took Wei Dechuan away. Mother Zhao directly found a well-known lawyer in the United States to deal with this matter. She still had some connections. She swore to let Wei Dechuan stay in jail for decades. It was extremely difficult to sentence people to death abroad. Although Wei Dechuan was the mastermind, his main target was Zhao Roland. Zhao Roland was fine. Because of this, he was most likely only sentenced to a few decades of punishment. However, there was no limit to the punishment. If the lawyer was strong enough to convict him of a heinous crime, it was possible for him to be sentenced to 70 or 80 years. He would never have a chance to get out of prison. After Wei Dechuan was caught, he still refused to let go of the reason why he wanted to kill Zhao Roland. In the end, he was forced to break through his psychological defense and finally let go. The thoughts he revealed were truly devoid of conscience. He killed Zhao Roland, and then he would be Zhao Roland's legal heir. Even if there was still Mother Zhao and Father Zhao, they were not in good health. Zhao Roland was the only daughter. If something happened to Zhao Roland and the child in her belly, they would definitely not be able to hold on for long. Wei Dechuan felt that the more sensitive the situation was, the less suspicious he would be. Zhao Roland still had his own child in her belly. Who would know that it was its biological father who found someone to kill its mother? He finally tricked Zhao Roland to that remote town, but he didn't expect such a big accident to happen. He was indeed knocked unconscious at that time. This was all done to make it seem real. The purpose was to make it so that he didn't have a chance to make a move and wouldn't suspect him. As long as the murderer wasn't caught. If Zhao Roland died, there was no evidence, and he might really succeed. When the news came back, Zhao Roland didn't know why, but she instantly thought of the sentence that the fortune-teller Lin Si had told her. This marriage, the family was ruined. The family, the family, the family. It wasn't a joke, it was real. If Wei Dixuan's plan succeeded, then her parents would be stimulated and met with an accident. Her family would be finished and her property would fall into Wei Dixuan's hands. Wouldn't her family be ruined? Zhao Roland fainted from anger. Lin Si briefly revealed the facts of Wei Dixuan's crime in his letter of thanks to Qiao Jin. He's not even human anymore. Do you know what he said? My elder sister and her family helped him so much. He thought that they were looking down on him and were just giving him pity. Oh my God, missing is better than past, master, tell me, what kind of peerless weirdo is this? If my godparents pitied him, why would they marry their precious daughter to him? He was born into a bad family, so he blamed my godsister's family for being too rich. If you think she's too rich, don't fucking marry her. You can be a noble prince, but you actually came up with a plan to kill your wife. You don't even care about your own child. Is this kind of person a natural beast? Chapter 359. Her tone was extremely angry. One could imagine how much of an impact this matter had caused. She was originally tutoring in English during the summer vacation. As soon as this happened, she immediately flew abroad to accompany Zhao Roland and the others to deal with the follow-up matters. Qiao Jin had already guessed this fact, so he didn't reply. In fact, when she had her fortune told back then, she had roughly known that Wei Dixuan would be the culprit. There was no one else who could be the culprit when it came to marriage. However, she couldn't guess the reason. Now, she knew that there were always people in this world. No matter how good you were to them, they would think that you were deliberately provoking them. They were just cheap. Some people were unsurprisingly despicable, while others were despicable and vicious. After such an experience, Zhao Roland would probably be traumatized by men, especially this type of man. Of course, what did this have to do with her? Missing is not as good as before, master, my godmother and my sister want to thank you. I wonder if you have time to meet them. We can visit you. If it's really inconvenient for you, forget it. Today, it's very inconvenient. Missing is not as good as before. Master, I understand. But I really have to thank you for this. You're really amazing. If it wasn't for the fact that the case had to be kept confidential and that this matter had stimulated her sister too much, she couldn't help but want to announce this fortune teller to the entire internet. It was so accurate. It was simply godly. Missing is not as good as before, shall I make up for my sister's fate package? This was a great calamity of fate. Back then, Lin Si had been alarmed. Now that Zhao Roland had truly escaped from the gates of hell, she definitely had to order the most expensive package. Today, there's no need. The 1 million yuan has already been offset. Missing is not as good as before. Wasn't that 1 million yuan donated to the temple? Can it withstand my sister's disaster? Today, this kind of thing, the cycle of karma, is destined. There will naturally be someone there to deal with your sister's 1 million yuan. Whether it will come true or not depends on the subsequent fortune. Your sister has escaped this time, which means that she has enough fortune. This 1 million yuan is appropriate. But sometimes, no matter how much money, no matter how much fortune there is, it can't be offset. It's all personal fate. It can only be said that her life wasn't meant to end. Missing is not as good as before, I don't really understand. I don't understand, but I think it's amazing. But you're really effective. Missing is better than gone, master, why did you open a cat treasure shop? If you were willing, there would be many people willing to hire you. There would be people willing to pay hundreds of thousands or even millions. Why did you open an online shop, and it's so cheap? Today, I don't lack money. These 3 words explained everything. Lin Si instantly understood. A master was indeed a master. Look at the height of his thoughts and morals. They were here to benefit society. She did not lack money. That was because she was interested in reading other people's fortunes. If someone was lucky enough to be read by her, wouldn't that benefit society? Lin Si was incomparably glad that she had met the master back then. Otherwise, her little life would have been long gone. Lin Sio wanted to continue, but Zhao Rolan, who was lying on the hospital bed, asked her, "Sio, are you chatting with the master?" Lin Si nodded. Zhao Rolan was a little expectant. What did master say? No. Lin Si sighed. Master is probably an expert who wants to hide his identity. Moreover, he said that he is not short of money. He is probably from a super awesome family. Lin Si was a fan of novels. She could not help but think of the legendary super hermit family written in novels. They were not short of money. All of them were awesome. Chapter 360. Zhao Roland smiled. In that case, I won't force you. Thank the master for me. Some things were better seen than heard. She didn't dare to be disrespectful to this master who was separated by the internet. These 4 words were enough to describe everything that she had encountered today, including the consequences of her actions. How could she not be afraid? She was too confident. Some things had been passed down for thousands of years and had their own reasons. There was always someone better than you. The master didn't reply. Lin Si put down her phone and looked at Zhao Roland curiously. Sister, have you thought about what godmother said? Zhao Roland's face was a little stiff. Mrs. Zhao was talking about aborting the child. She didn't want Wei Dixuan's bastard child in this family. It wasn't that she didn't believe in her daughter, but she felt uncomfortable with Wei Dixuan's genes. After such a thing happened, she couldn't treat this child calmly, even if it was in her daughter's stomach. In fact, Lin Si agreed. The child's father was like this. For the future, she didn't recommend her sister to give birth to this child. Zhao Roland was also a little hesitant. In the end, it was maternal instinct. This was a child connected to her own blood. At this moment, Mother Zhao came in with a sullen face. Zhao Roland's heart skipped a beat. Mom. Mother Zhao said, Wei Dixuan's family called and said that they want you to write a letter of forgiveness to forgive Wei Dixuan. They also want the child to be born and raised by them. They want us to pay 100,000 yuan a month for living expenses. Speaking of this, she couldn't help but sneer. I didn't even hear an apology. I only heard them farting. Lin Si couldn't help but shout, oh my god, is this human language? How can there be people under the same blue sky who can become animals? Oh, no, they're worse than animals. After all, they've already given birth to such a son. We should know what the family is like. Zhao Roland's face darkened. Mother Zhao said, I know you don't want to abort the child, but you have to think about reality. You're raising this child. His father is an executioner who wants to kill you. The child is innocent, but the child's father's family is not. If you give birth to this child, do you believe that Wei Dixuan's family will definitely not let us off? He only thinks that the only bloodline of their family has been sent to prison by you. Now, this is their only hope. It's their kindness that they didn't cut you into pieces. If you give birth to this child, do you think you'll have a peaceful life? Although they were immigrants, it was impossible for them not to return home. Moreover, Mother Lin and the others were also in the country. Wei Dixuan's parents knew the address. There was also a situation where Wei Dixuan's parents directly broke into the Lin family's house. There was always a lot to consider. Zhao Roland's heart turned cold when she heard those words. Now that she thought about the future, it did make sense. It was true that she loved her children, but when she thought of Wei Dixuan, she was unable to overcome this hurdle. The woman who used to share his bed with him in the past probably thought about killing him all day long. How was she going to explain this child when he grew up in the future? If she wasn't selfish now, she wouldn't be able to be selfish in the future. She still had her children, her grandparents, and so many relatives. Thinking of this, Zhao Roland closed her eyes. A few drops of tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Her voice was also filled with incomparable exhaustion. "Mom, let the hospital arrange the surgery for me. I don't want to keep this child anymore."